the Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecoms Union, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good day. It is a privilege to address you today at the 2025 ICT Week under such a forward-looking theme, driving change, connecting futures. At Afrexim Bank, we see this as more than a slogan. It is a call for regions like Africa and the Caribbean that are bound by history, connected by culture, are united by a shared aspiration for prosperity. Regrettably, due to prior commitments, I am unable to join you physically today, but I am delighted to share these few words and to reaffirm Afrexim Bank's commitment to the vision captured in this year's theme. Information and communication technology is not the backbone of our economies. It is how entrepreneurs reach new markets, how young people access opportunities, and how governments deliver services with speed and transparency. In moments of global turbulence, like we are experiencing today, ICT is also how we build resilience, ensuring continuity in trade, education, healthcare, and financial system. For us at Afrexim Bank, driving change means using technology to unlock access. First, we talk about access to finance through digital platforms and fintech solutions. For example, the Africa Trade Gateway, which is Afrexim Bank's marketplace that connects buyers and sellers from within and outside of the continent. Secondly, we talk about access to market. For instance, we have the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which we are working to extend to the Caribbean to facilitate trade and settlement using local currencies. As you may be aware, the Caribbean Payment and Settlement System, which is the adaptation of PAPS in the Caribbean region, has undergone a successful proof of concept and is now within a pilot phase, which will eventually birth the payment platform that will support regional trade in the Caribbean. We strongly look forward to connecting CAPS and PAPS, and we believe this will yield the world's largest connected regional payment system for both Africa and the Caribbean. And finally, we talk about access to opportunities by supporting SMEs and startups that are digitally enabled and globally competitive. This will also include those in the creative sector. Therefore, connecting futures for us means building bridges across the Atlantic, between Africa and the Caribbean, so that our innovators, players in the creative sector, telecom providers, and digital entrepreneurs can collaborate, scale solutions, and create shared prosperity. This will leverage on the successes already recorded through the Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum in creating a platform for connection between the region. As many of you may know, in August 2023, Afrexim Bank inaugurated its first regional office outside of the continent Africa, and this was in Bridgetown, Barbados. This milestone followed a commitment made by the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afrexim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, at the inaugural Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, active in 2022, during which he pledged to establish a physical presence in the Caribbean region, primarily devoted to deepening trade and investment ties between Africa and the Caribbean, with the ultimate goal of fostering our shared prosperity. Since then, Afrexim Bank Caribbean office has worked diligently to fulfill this promise. In just 2 years, we have signed partnership agreements with 13 out of the 15 CARICOM member states, which gives them opportunity to benefit from the suite of program and facilities on offer by the bank. We have built a robust Caribbean transaction pipeline exceeding over $2 billion, with more than 700 million already disbursed. Beyond financing, we have actively fostered inter-regional linkages, most notably through the annual Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, which is in the 4th edition this year. And the successful hosting of the 4th edition in St. George's, Grenada, saw record participation of over 2,000 people from different countries within Africa and the Caribbean. As such, we're also seeing increased participation from the Caribbean at the annual meetings of Afreximbank, as well as the Intra-African Trade Fair, which shows that the journey to connect these two regions is yielding dividends. In March 2025, we reaffirmed our long-term commitment to the Caribbean region during the groundbreaking and land handover ceremony for the $180 million Afreximbank Africa Trade Center (AATC) to be situated in the heart of Bridgetown, Barbados. This will be the first of such centers outside the continent Africa. This center will serve as a hub for trade facilitation, business development, and cultural exchanges between Africa and the Caribbean. In parallel, Afreximbank has also placed strong emphasis on strategic partnerships and has therefore continued to collaborate with regional governments, financial institutions, and development agencies to unlock new opportunities for trade, investment, and innovation. Consequently, recognizing the Caribbean Telecom Union as an integral organization in the region for transformative change, giving its mandate to harmonize ICT policies, promote digital inclusion, and foster innovation across member states, as well as its leadership in shaping the regional digital agenda. Afreximbank is pleased to have signed a memorandum of understanding with CTU during the last Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum in Grenada. The agreement outlines a framework for cooperation and collaboration on a number of key areas, namely accelerating regional digital transformation, enhancing financial inclusion and digital payments, facilitating trade and investment, capacity building and technical collaboration, and supporting innovation-driven economic development. This partnership is not merely symbolic. Instead, it represents a shared commitment to harnessing the power of digital technologies to drive inclusive and sustainable growth across the region, particularly in the areas of digital infrastructure development, fintech enablement, and cross-border trade facilitation and payment. These synergies create a strong foundation for impactful collaboration, allowing us to jointly address structural challenges while unlocking new opportunities for economic transformation. Through this MOU, Afreximbank and the CTU, we work together to bridge the digital divide, ensuring the communities across the Caribbean have access to the tools, infrastructure, and knowledge needed to thrive in the digital age. As we look forward ahead, Afreximbank remains unwavering in its commitment to the Caribbean region. We stand ready to provide both financial and technical support to public and private sector entities, academic institutions, and innovation hubs, as well as those in the creative sector that are driving the region's transformation. Whether through tailored financial solutions, advisory services, and collaborative initiatives, we are dedicated to empowering Caribbean stakeholders to realize their full potentials and build a future that is inclusive, resilient, and globally competitive. Before I close, let me say a big thank you to the organizers of this event, especially the Secretary General of the CTU, Rodney Taylor, and his team for working so hard to put this event together and making it possible for us to participate. And I look forward to each of you enjoying what promises to be a resoundingly successful event. I thank you very much for your kind attention. The Secretary General of
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Hope you had a good lunch. I'm Rodney Taylor, the Secretary General of the CTU, and welcome to the joint meeting of the 53rd Executive Council of the CTU and the 31st General Conference. This is a joint meeting. We held our, as you know, we held our ministerial seminar just yesterday. Today's meeting, we started off with the closed meeting of the Executive Council, where we presented financial statements and so on, the work plan for 2026, a number of resolutions that we want to table at our General Conference for the support of our ministers to coordinate the regional policies and regional interventions. So this afternoon is a joint meeting. It's open, so the Executive Council meeting is closed, the General Conference is closed, and those were occasionally we would invite interventions in those meetings. But this joint meeting is open. It's open certainly to our private sector members and to other stakeholders to get a sense of what plans the CTU has, what projects we've been working on, and we invite your feedback, of course. So I welcome all of you. To my left is the President of the CTU, General Conference of Ministers, Minister the Honorable Dominic Smith of Trinidad and Tobago. Next to him is the Chairman of the Executive Council, Rodney Payne, from Barbados. And today we have a special guest as well, Mr. Curtis Lindquist, the CEO and President of ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. So we're very pleased to have him with us. The last time ICANN President and CEO came was about 13 years ago. And Jamaica seems to have a thing for attracting CEOs of ICANN. So we also want to, of course, acknowledge our gracious host, Minister Darrell Vaz, for his hospitality thus far and for joining us, and all of our other distinguished ministers. Thank you. So apologies for the late start. We just had the meeting ran over and then we had a few difficulties, but we're going to try to keep the meeting back on track. So because we are going to take advantage of having the President and CEO to start our meeting off with a few remarks from him, and it's an opportunity for our member states to engage with the CEO on a number of matters. Those of you who are tracking the World Summit on the Information Society, this is 20 years in which the process is being reviewed, and Mr. Lindquist mentioned some of these issues in his remarks last night, but this is an opportunity not just for remarks, but to engage on some of the issues that he raised. So even the issue of the new GTLDs, support for small island developing states within ICANN, how can we better enable that? And also, of course, I'm sure he would welcome an opportunity to tell you a bit more about ICANN itself, and its future plans and that kind of thing. So, but it's pretty much open, and we're going to invite him to just set the stage with his opening remarks. The floor is over to you, Mr. Lindquist.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Your Excellencies, and thank you for having me, and I will certainly be happy to take questions and engage afterwards. Thank you for this opportunity to address this joint meeting of the 53rd Executive Council. And it's a privilege to join you at such an important moment in our shared digital journey as we approach WSIS Plus 20, as we just heard. WSIS Plus 20 is not simply an opportunity for us to mark a milestone. We are engaging in a global dialogue about the shared priorities. And for those of you who may be new to this conversation, the World Summit on the Information Society, or WSIS, was something that's held in two phases, in Geneva in 2003 and in Tunis in 2005, as the United Nations process aimed at building a people-centered, inclusive and development-oriented information society. I was one of the delegates back then as a national delegate. And this process really set out a shared vision for how digital technologies could support sustainable development. And now, 20 years later, WSIS Plus 20 gives us the chance to reflect on what has been achieved, which challenges remains, and how can we shape the next phase of digital cooperation. WSIS Plus 20 is a test of whether we still value global coordination over institutional centralization. At ICANN, we believe that it is coordination, not control, that sustains an internet that works for everyone. Coordination is the key to ensuring that the internet remains a single, stable, and secure interoperable network. And that's just not a principle, it's actually a prerequisite for digital development and for everything we talk about and do here today. Over the past 2 decades, we've seen remarkable digital transformation and growing challenges when progress outpaces cooperation. The WSIS Sustainable Development Goals matrix, developed through the WSIS process, provides a framework that links information and communication technologies and WSIS action lines to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It gives us a shared path to align digital opportunity with global priorities. Yet, digital development alone is not enough. Without trust, security, and resilient systems, development gains cannot be fully realized. Over this same period, a high level of attention has also been given to digital transformation by governments and regional organizations in the Caribbean. This commitment reflects a recognition that meaningful digital access requires more than just connectivity. It depends on trust, resilience, and multilingual reach. Without the strong technical foundations, the full potential of digital tools to support the Sustainable Development Goals can be difficult to reach, particularly in the very communities that stand to benefit the most. And the lesson is very clear that implementation begins with the infrastructure, and infrastructure begins with coordination. At ICANN, we coordinate the unique identifiers that allows the internet to function as one unified network. Our mission is technical, yet the impact of this work is foundational and supports everything from digital government services to telemedicine, educational platforms, and emergency alerts. The internet is really an enabling infrastructure. One of its greatest strengths is its ability to operate globally across borders and sectors without centralized control. It is not a commodity, nor is it a geopolitical lever. That model is rare, but it's essential and is worth reinforcing. When we discuss strategies to leverage digital technologies, we often focus on platforms and programs, yet those depend on core systems that must be stable, scalable, and globally interoperable. And that's where our work on what's called universal acceptance, internationalized domain names, and the upcoming round on new generic top-level domains is particularly relevant. These are not just abstract technical standards, they are being used today by governments, universities, and local developers to help ensure that users can access the internet in their own languages and scripts. For the Caribbean, this includes enabling access in English, French, Spanish, Dutch, and Creole, expanding reach to communities that have historically been underserved. And to add a personal note, as someone who has a native language who is not Latin script-based, this is something that is very dear to me. Equally important are the opportunities that the next round of new GTLDs may open for businesses and organizations across the region. Companies that operate across multiple Caribbean countries, such as Sidecore or Massey, could benefit from domain names that strengthen their digital identity and consumer trust across sectors like insurance, retail, and financial services. We're already seeing encouraging steps. Recent collaboration between the Canto and ICANN, including the next round of new GTLDs and the applicant support program webinars with Canto members, as well as participation from ICANN in Canto 40 in the Bahamas, shows the value of working with regional organizations to share knowledge and build capacity. The support from Canto Secretary General and Secretariat has been invaluable in helping us extend this outreach. But our regional work also extends to partnership with the CTU, ensuring governments are informed about the new GTLD program and related opportunities, We're also collaborating with organizations such as the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, and through ICANN's Latin American and Caribbean at Large Community, or LACROLO, which is the representation of end users, where activities like ICANN Near You in Guyana and regional webinars are helping bring the conversation closer to stakeholders on the ground. These efforts represent more than just information sharing. Together, they are building not just capacity, but resilience for the region's digital future, and are structural investments in long-term access, participation, and opportunity for the Caribbean. But sustainable development requires sustained cooperation. That's where models like the Internet Governance Forum or the IGF remain essential. The IGF's strength lies in what it enables: open engagement among governments, civil society, business, and the technical community, but without the pressure to negotiate and formalize outcomes. That flexibility is not a limitation. It is precisely what makes the IGF an effective incubator for ideas and a catalyst for cooperation. The technical community brings a unique contribution to that mix. We do not create national development plans. We ensure that systems those plans rely on, domain names, IP addresses, root zone management, etc., remains dependable and secure. In the Caribbean, the multi-stakeholder approach is already well established, particularly in the regional organizations such as the CTU, or shared work with CTU, Canto at large, and GAC representatives that reflects the multi-stakeholder model and how global coordination can be connected with regional priorities, ensuring that internet governance remains inclusive and effective at every level, further promoting cooperation without centralization. Looking ahead, the task is clear. The Internet's future, its stability, accessibility, and potential depends on technical coordination that works across borders, across sectors, and across languages. Fragmentation, whether institutional or technical, is the real threat. And it is the responsibility of the global technical community to help prevent this. The Internet's future depends on cooperation that works, and our job is to help hold that cooperation together, calmly, reliably, and at scale. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those remarks. We will open the floor, but I would actually maybe take the liberty to start the ball rolling. Thank you very much for those remarks. We will open the floor, but I would actually maybe take the liberty to start the ball rolling. Thank you very much for those remarks. We will open the floor, but I would actually maybe. So if you're in the room and on the Zoom, please make sure that that your mic is closed and that your audio is off, please. Thank you. Let's wait a minute. Okay, good. So it's in relation to the regional presence of ICANN within the Caribbean. And we know, of course, the work that Daniels has been doing, and he's probably sweating a bit because he wants to know what am I going to say. But certainly from the ITU is here, we have the representative from the ITU as well. So we want to know, well, not we, but certainly I am thinking in terms of how can ICANN strengthen its regional presence. We have 20 member states are members of the CTU. We have diverse needs. He's certainly been advocating and has gone a long way in ensuring that more Caribbean countries have signed on to be members of the Governmental Advisory Committee. And we have been doing our part as well to ensure that in our national and regional initiatives that ICANN is there to help inform our member states of the role of ICANN, raise awareness, and encourage participation. But perhaps, what are your thoughts on strengthening the regional presence of ICANN, in particular within the Caribbean? Thank you.
No, thank you. That's a very good question. I mean, I think as part of our strategic plan, strengthening our engagement and our outreach is actually one of the top priorities. And I think that goes for all regions. I mean, obviously, we're in the Caribbean. And I think working to forums like this, where we, as I just did, bring common, I was going to say topics of concern, but I don't know if it's concern, but topics of mutual interest.
Start the ball rolling. And thank you very much for those remarks. We will open the
Okay, thank you. And I think, bringing topics of common interest, helping to continue the capacity building that we are doing in this region, because as I was just noting in the speeches last night, and as I said, I'm from an island nation as well, and there's very specific concerns against resilience, infrastructure, that we can help with the capacity building and help bring these issues, and how that we can work to build better resilience in the infrastructure. All those are topics that we work on, and we do a lot of work around this across the globe, and bringing these issues and help working with the members of the CTU. There's certainly topics that we can do. There is a lot of work, as I mentioned, around the new GTLD program that we can bring, and we can continue to work closely with the CTU that we have done a lot of work on already. We can do a lot more of this, and we should do a lot more of this. I do want to praise this, by the way, the CTU and all the Caribbean from last night, is that I do think it's one of the regions that really punches about weight in internet governance. I think when I first started ICANN, some of the first countries I met with were from the Caribbean, who have sought me out. And so you really do engage in this, and I think we can do more on that, and we have the dedicated resources towards that. And as I said, I think we should just continue working on these work plans and help the region really grow in that.
Thank you very much. The floor is open. Grenada.
Thank you very much. Vincent Roberts from Grenada. Just want to add to the contribution. I'm the government representative on the GAC, and at the ICANN, we have a forum for small island development states, and Tracy Hackshaw is very active in that forum. Also, under the leadership of Albert Daniels, we have decided that with so few of us participating, we should try to reach out personally to the other member states and try to encourage them to attend, bearing in mind that there are a number of fellowships available, not just for GAC members of the region, but for others like the youth who want to attend. So there are a lot of opportunities, but one has to pay attention to the ICANN site. Those of us who are already involved should reach out to other member states and participate actively in the forum with small island development states, etc. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The floor remains open. There is a roving mic as well, so anyone is free to raise your questions. You know? Make sure that there's a mic in case. Okay.
There's a standing mic and a roving mic. Thank you. Yeah. Welcome to the Caribbean, and thanks for coming. Hi, Nigel Castamere from the CTU, and I also participate in the GAC. And Vincent made mention of the SIDS space and so on. But looking at this audience, which is governmental, yes, participation in the GAC and so on is paramount, but each of our governments is trying to develop our digital economies, right? And it's beyond what the governments can do. ICANN has multiple constituencies, and I'm wondering, beyond our influence in the GAC, what maybe we can look to ICANN for, governments can look to ICANN for, to support the development of their the digital economies.
So ICANN has a very narrow mandate, so I'm not sure I don't want to overpromise when it comes to. But look, I think, as I said in the opening remarks, this is a very foundational layer, right? There won't be economic growth, there won't be any digitalization growth unless we have the stable, secure, interoperable internet. I mean, and that's what we have to safeguard. And I was telling some other here earlier today, and I've been going around to many of the world countries, and one of the things that we have re-emphasized is that if we start fragmenting today's internet, what we're actually doing is that we are limiting the potential for economic growth, right? The more fragmentation we have, the less reach and the less potential for economic growth do we have. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. ICANN's role and what we do with the technical identifiers that we provide is to create this unique, ubiquitous, globally accessible internet that creates that value potential. And I think that's really what ICANN offers. With that, we can offer a lot more help when it comes to the security and resilience and stability, and give best guidelines and help consult on how do we do that. But that's really what ICANN's remit is. And that's at the heart of what we do. You know, yes, we also, together with GAC and the others, formulate the policies of how that is done. But the value proposition is really this unified, stable, secure internet.
Yeah, so thank you. I'll follow up unless you, well, and it's sort of a different topic. In the past, part of the our efforts to raise awareness about the role of ICANN, what we've had in the past in particular concerning, and these are policymakers here within the region, we've had some misunderstandings with respect to the country code top-level domains and how that functions, who owns it, and in many cases there's that tension because governments consider that to be part of a national resource. Can you explain just in terms of how that policy is designed, and how, if there are concerns by member states that this is a national resource, what actions can be taken? How can they impact policy in that respect?
This is a very complicated and technical topic, so I'm going to try to do my best of doing this. And so the policies for how country code top-level domains were delegated, which let's start there, has obviously predates ICANN. It predates most institutions on the internet, and go back to the late 80s, early 90s, where a lot of these policies were created and many of these top-level domains were assigned or delegated. Today, there's a set of policies that constructs who we recognize as a current operator, which is the actual technical role of running the top-level domain. Right? And I think this is where maybe some of the confusion lies, is that our role is to so first of all, ICANN do not decide what is a country or not. We use the ISO code list of what is a country code and thereby what is a country, right? And those country codes are what we delegate as CCTLDs, or country code top-level domains. ICANN's role is to identify the technical operator for that top-level domain. And there is a set of policies that defines what that means. You have to meet certain technical criteria to be able to operate it. You have to show that you have a support of the local community, which is the most key part of this. So it's not just enough to be a government. You also have to show that you somehow, and this might sound strange in this room, but I'd like to point out there are several territories in the world where who is the government is not as clear as it necessarily is in this room, right? And so therefore just mainly claiming that you're the government isn't enough to be recognized. You also have to show that there is some community behind them. As I'm sure you're aware, there are several conflicts in the world today where there's more than one government for one territory, and we need to safeguard, because technically we can only have one operator for a domain name. And I'm not going to go through the entire set of criteria, but there's a policy list of where what the criteria is for having a CCTLD. There is rarely, I would say, disputes about CCTLDs. It does happen. We then tend to get a request for a redelegation, as it's called, is to move from one operator to the other. And for that to take place, there's again a set of criteria that needs to be met. I would say that in 99% of the cases we receive, this is a agreed handover where the old operators agrees to hand over the CCTLD to the next operator. And then there's a small number where this becomes more complicated. But that's essentially how the recognition of top-level domains are and how we do this. there is an entire website with all these documents that outlines exactly how this process works, exactly what these policies are, and the IANA function inside ICANN that deals with this, they are generally very happy to engage with countries and CCTLD operators to explain the policies, to explain the process, and how that works.
Thank you very much. Floor is open.
I guess it's a technical topic. If I come back to the digital economy again, ICANN is about to open a round for applications for generic top-level domains, .com and so on. And as we found the last time, there was very little participation from smaller states, large parts of the world where no such applications were coming. We've been trying to get applicants out of the Caribbean. ICANN has been helping, I know, with applicant support program and so on. But given that we have policymakers in the room and so on, maybe you could talk a bit about what the value of having a generic top-level domain might be and how it could possibly impact on the local economies.
Sure. So a generic top-level domain is so two character domain names are country code top-level domain names, and then we have generic top-level domains like .music, whatever we have. But they also include geographical, like .Berlin, .Amsterdam, .Vienna, geographical names or brand names, so .Gucci or whatever we have. And they all have very distinct purposes for what they do or why you might apply for them. And the brand names can be because you want to have brand recognition, you want to have a security around so that end users knows that this is a true website that belongs to this brand. There is a subset of that has been promoted quite a bit this time, which is about protecting infrastructure. So Sky, as in the broadband provider, not the satellite company, they have talked a lot about how they use that to protect their infrastructure. Orange have talked about similar things. And so that's a subset of this, so that telco operators are starting to use this as a security feature. And this is also increasingly true for enterprises in general, to protect their infrastructure. From a geographical standpoint, as I said, there is .Berlin, .Vienna, .Amsterdam. They have all used them slightly differently, but it's primarily this to highlight businesses or aspects of that city or the geographical region that you want to promote and give extra emphasis. So on a different geographical level than just a country code. And then last is the generic ones, which is .music or .dog or whatever we have. They tend to come with a business model behind them. You have seen a market where you believe you can sell something, .name or etc. And that is essentially anyone can come up with that business model, but you need to have an idea of what that business model would look like. We do believe that this time around there will also be a lot of applications coming from the crypto markets. I'm not an expert in the crypto markets, so I'm not going to have an opinion on this, but that's yet another new application for this use case. So there's many of these use cases where you can see value in this and how you create the business model underlining this. To support this, we also have something called Applicant Support Program that is open to mid-November, where underserved regions or non-profits can apply and get a massive or a large, between 75 and 85% discount on the application charge or the evaluation charge for these new GTLDs, and that's meant to help underserved regions. Of course, they will still need to have a business case behind them, but at least the initial fee is then much lowered, and that is to help serve the underserved regions or NGOs.
So maybe we could encourage a .Caribbean or something out of the room.
You can do a .Caribbean, .rum,
Right. Okay.
Is there a danger, though, for some of our countries that are not fully tuned into this process, despite the efforts that ICANN is taking, is that those names, for example, that we could find in a few years that those are gone, and what safeguards are there against these sort of culturally, they may not be geographic indicators. Like Jamaica, for example, the jerk is, reggae, those kind of words. Thanks.
So geographic names are more protected. So you need to show support for a geographic name. So they will be more protected. There's a whole rule book around geographical names. Other names are less protected. So rum, reggae are generic words, and they would very well be. They could be taken by someone who's speculating in that reason. And we've seen this. I don't think we've seen much of this, but obviously there's always a risk, right?
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Lindquist?
A question behind.
And you can just state your name for us, please. Thank you.
Pleasant afternoon, everyone. My name is Shannon from Laco, and this question is for Mr. Lindquist. So, given that our small islands that are developing, still has limited resources, how does ICANN plan to ensure that while we are implementing, sustainable internet connection for all, that it will be sustainable for the long term within these countries?
So connectivity is outside ICANN's scope. So we don't really deal with physical infrastructure or internet access. This is not really inside our scope. So I can't really answer the question on that to that level. But on the things that fall inside us when it comes to digital identifiers or the domain name system or IP addresses, and we strive very much to ensure that this is that we have this stable, resilient model around that. But internet connectivity per se, that is outside our mandate, so we don't really deal with that, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. If there... okay. Yeah, thank you. Just state your name, and maybe the last question as we wrap up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Lindquist, welcome. My name is Nicole Foga. I'm an attorney, and I am interested from your perspective in how we will resolve the who is debate. Because as you are aware, we often have difficulties accessing the person behind the domain name as a result of registrars taking certain points. I don't want to go too much into that. I know you're aware of the issue, and I was just wondering, where do you see the resolution coming? Thank you.
So this, just to give a very quick briefing, is that when you own a domain name, either there is many classes of access requests. This can be law enforcement, it can be for dispute resolution, it can be for infringement of copyright, it can be many, many reasons why you might want to have a request to find out who has the ownership behind a domain name. And there is many aspects of this problem. The first is the pure technical access to data. There used to be a protocol interface called WHOIS that was sunset at the beginning of the year, has been replaced by something called RDAP. Thank you. There we go. Which is something ICANN now mandates that the registrars support, and we can discuss. We are working to make sure everybody actually does support this as part of the compliance. But that's the technical aspect of accessing the data. The second is then what data and under what circumstances do you actually get access to the data. And the first part of this is discussed with the GAC, or within the GAC together with the registrar group about something called urgent requests, which is when law enforcement urgently needs access to data. And this is policy that's being developed, and there is a meeting scheduled for the upcoming ICANN meeting in Dublin, where I believe that there is a concrete proposal on the table. I can't prejudge the outcome of that, but that's at least being discussed. So that's a policy development in place. And then there is the wider discussion about accessing the data and under what criteria and what jurisdiction. Because just because you're asking for a request doesn't mean you have jurisdiction to get that data, which makes it slightly more complicated. And different jurisdictions have different laws around accessing data. This is an ongoing discussion. I do think we need to have some policy developed, and that's being worked on, as you know. That's a very, very hot topic in the registrar community, together with the intellectual property constituency, who is driving a lot of this work. And I really hope that we can reach a agreeable solution to have a policy on that. But that is a policy work. It's not something that ICANN staff steps in and enforces. That's part of the GNSO policy development, and that's ongoing. So it's a great question, though.
Thank you very much. We have one last question, and then we will just get some closing comments. Go ahead,
Good
please.
afternoon, Mr. Lindquist. I am Francola John, the coordinator for the CTU Network of Women, and of a very active network. And we know that ICANN has a gender diversity and participation survey report, but we'd like to know what activities in ICANN can we encourage women in the Caribbean to participate more of in the ICANN process for gender diversity.
Thank you. That's a very good question. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but we have a very similar structure in ICANN called Women in DNS, sorry, the other way around, which is very, very active. I have had the privilege to be invited last time to their meeting, which is very good. It's a very active network that works very hard to bring women into DNS and also into the ICANN ecosystem. And also to promote that and to really drive that work forward. And also inside the ICANN policies, there is a lot of work in, I'm going to call work stream 2, without geeking too much into this, but emphasizes ICANN's work on diversity and gender balance in the work we do. That's also something that exists. So there's a lot of opportunity for that.
Thank you very much. I think you've been very, very very good in terms of your responses, and I think it has helped significantly in addressing some of the concerns that we've had. But we're a little bit behind schedule. I don't know if you want to maybe just give a few closing comments for this session. We are engaging separately with the ministers tomorrow.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been really an honor to come here. I've been very, and I want to make sure that you didn't say it was 30 years since the last CEO. It was 13 years since the last CEO was here. So, and I hope it won't be 13 years until next time. I do think it's valuable to go to these meetings and go around the world and meet the different member states and the states to hear your view, because you're a very important player in what ICANN does. But also, nations like the Caribbean is a very important part of delivering on ICANN's promise, because it's actually for the Caribbean, for the member states, that a lot of the work we do and where we can have the most impact. And you know, growing regions, growing economies is really where the internet will make the most impact, and our role is to help support that.
Thank you very much, and I would just, I think we did mention sometime yesterday about the possibility of hosting an ICANN meeting in the Caribbean and the facilities that would be required to do that, but I would certainly love to encourage that and support our member states in hosting one of these ICANN meetings. So please give the presidency a round of applause for his participation. Thank you. Thank you very much. So are we breaking up for the group photo, or do we deal with that? Okay, we will make another arrangement for that group photo so that we will just. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions and comments. The agenda for this session is up on the CTU website, ctu.int, and if you click on the ICT Week banner, you'll see the full agenda. You can look for the joint meeting of the 53rd EC and GC meeting and 31st GC. We are going to skip the agenda a bit, though, and go to a presentation from on the World Telecommunication ICT Policy Forum, WTPF 26, taking place in Bahamas next year. And we're going to invite Ms. Michelle Grell-Burrow, who's in Geneva right now, 6 hours ahead of us, so we're going to take her presentation now so that she doesn't have to stay up until midnight. If I can get the Zoom on the big screen, please, and then invite Michelle to introduce. So the World Telecom Policy Forum is, okay, Michelle will tell us about it. Michelle, can you hear us? The floor is yours. Yes, if you're speaking, we are not hearing you. Do we have audio in the room? Michelle, are you speaking? Well, okay, so I suspect she may be trying to, or maybe speaking, but we're not hearing. So while we wait for Michelle, and as
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, loud and clear. Go ahead, please. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So the WTPF, thank you, Michelle. As Michelle pointed out, so the ITU has several conferences: the World Radio Conference, the World Telecoms Development Conference, which is taking place this year, the Plenipotentiary Conference, of course, taking place next year. This conference is non-binding. There's a process we're going through right now. I'm the chair of the informal expert group for the WTPF 26. And that expert group is made up of stakeholders from around the world. There are vice chairs representing different regions, Arab states, Africa, the Americas, and so on. And we are preparing a report for the Secretary General and around several different topics, including bridging digital divides, green digital transformation, resilience of telecommunications, ICT, space connectivity, strengthening ICT-centric innovation ecosystems and entrepreneurships. And an outcome of the conference will be what the IT refers to as opinions. So having discussed these issues, there will be 5 opinions that are non-binding, but will provide some policy guidance to the ITU as it moves forward in its various conferences, WTDC, Plenipot, etc. We encourage member states to participate in the process to review the opinions as they are developed. And we are thankful to Bahamas for agreeing to host this conference. It could have been hosted anywhere in the world, but it is being hosted right in our backyard here in the Bahamas. And we want to encourage member states. We do have a resolution calling on member states to support the hosting of this conference in Bahamas. And in particular, the high level, the strategic dialogue gives us the opportunity to shape that discussion, maybe to focus on small island developing states, not just in the Caribbean, but the Pacific Islands and the UN-defined small states. The floor is open if there are any questions with regard to this conference, but we felt that it was such a great opportunity. It's a few months away now, 9 months away, but that time will come very quickly. The last meeting of the expert group will take place in Geneva in January. Like I said, all of the various stakeholders participating, including the satellite companies, very interested in space connectivity and bridging the digital divides and so on. We will update our ministers in greater detail on those opinions that are being developed tomorrow when we meet, but we just wanted to share this exciting opportunity with our stakeholders from the Caribbean. So the floor is open if there are any questions or comments regarding the World Telecoms Policy Forum taking place next year in the Bahamas. Okay, so we certainly encourage your participation as the date draws near, so that the region can be well represented. We're going to move on to an update on the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum and the 4th Caribbean Youth IGF, which took place in Varadero, Cuba, just last month. And to give us that update is Mr. Nigel Casimir, Deputy Secretary General.
Thank you very much, SG. I'm actually sharing some slides on Zoom. So if we could have that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so basically we are giving an update on the 21st Caribbean Internet Governance Forum and the 4th Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum. The Caribbean Internet Governance Forum is actually the first and longest running regional Internet Governance Forum in the world. We did the first one in Guyana, September of 2005, in order to build some consensus Caribbean opinions to take to the final session of the World Summit on the Information Society in November 2005. And we've had one of these Internet Governance Forums every year since then. The UN started its own after the WSIS, so they started in 2006. So we have that distinction of the first and longest running. And in fact, it's well recognized as well. We have outcomes out of our annual meetings, one of which is a compilation of the consensus opinions or policy prescriptions that would have emerged from the various discussions at the fora on a wide range of topics. And that document, the Caribbean Internet Governance Policy Framework, is on the CTU website. It's currently issue 4.0. That was issued, I think, in January of 2024. And we'll probably put another edition out maybe sometime late next year. Since 2022 as well, we have spawned the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum. Around the world, we've seen youth IGFs crop up, and it's been noted that the voice of youth in certainly these technology-related areas is a valuable voice for all of us to pay attention to. So we've made a space for that, and the youth actually plan and execute their own IGF. We basically just provide space for them. The diagram on the right shows you, well, it's not too clear that you can see, but you might see a box towards the top left of the diagram marked CTU. CTU is one of the organizations that puts together the program of the CIGF every year. We convene it, so we basically do the secretarial sort of coordination, but we get opinions from a multi-stakeholder group of persons to determine what the agenda would be. And the lower levels of that diagram relate to national IGFs, and we've been able to stimulate the emergence of multiple national IGFs. We got one in Guyana last year. Trinidad and Tobago is probably in its 9th year or so. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one that is also held annually. We've had in Barbados, they are a little bit dormant right now, but I think they are looking to get back into shape. So what this is doing is strengthening the multi-stakeholder conversations at various levels around the Caribbean in order that, like Mr. Lindquist was saying, we can enhance the contribution of the Caribbean in the global internet discussion. What we did this year, we had our 21st CIGF. It was held in August in Varadero, Cuba. And as the statistic shows there, 120 persons in person, plus others online. I myself was online for some of the time. And the theme was Evolving Caribbean Internet Governance for an Exclusive Digital Future. There was the 4th Caribbean Youth IGF as well. And this was actually our first bilingual IGF. That was a key point, so we've stretched the boundaries, you know, and hopefully we will grow from strength to strength as far as bringing the Caribbean together in these discussions. The topics that were discussed include what the full list there. We always focus on capacity building. We got some information on the digitalization of the postal sector. The CTU has an MOU with the Universal Postal Union that we share spaces to present information on digital transformation. AI in the Caribbean. AI, of course, is the emergent force in the technical world these days. And we've noted that since the last issue of our policy framework, AI has taken off. And we are now trying to formulate appropriate policies to put into that policy framework related to AI, or maybe a decision might be taken that we need a separate document related to AI. There was talk about youth perspectives on global fora, and we heard about WSIS and WSIS plus 20 and so on. Global internet governance updates. We had a policy forum which looked at some of the ICANN-related stuff related to regional internet registries like ARIN and LACNIC and so on, who give internet numbers to our ISPs in the Caribbean. There was a special Cuba session, and there was also discussion on online safety and digital harms. So we have a lot of takeaways. It's a kind of a dense slide there, but certainly on child online safety, developing regional frameworks for things like AI, continuing global engagement, fostering national transformations, empowering youth, partnerships and support, and following up on some of the items that came out of the national focus on Cuba. So SG, I think that's all I have on the internet governance, and I'll take any questions that people might have.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Let me take the opportunity to thank Cuba and the Vice Minister from Cuba for excellent facilitation of the 21st CIGF. It set a new standard for hosting our CIGF, and I want to thank you publicly for the excellent facilitation, for the local participation, and for the offers of cooperation in areas like telemedicine and so on. So we look forward to following up on some of those outcomes. So thank you very much.
And also, just to say, as the slide shows, we take feedback anytime related to internet governance issues and policy. CIGF at ctu.int or CYIGF for the youth at ctu.int. And as I said, we are open to any suggestions, especially related to AI policies that you might have. Thank you.
I also want to take the opportunity to encourage member states, those of you who have not yet held a national internet governance forum. Basically, it's an opportunity for wide consultation from your stakeholders, from the private sector, from the technical community, from the policymakers to have a discussion on the internet and how it impacts your individual countries, Grenada, Dominica, and so on. I was years ago chairman of the Barbados chapter of the Internet Society, and we hosted our first Internet Governance Forum around 2017, 2018. And it was a really good, engaging conversation. That also spawned the Barbados Youth IGF. And so we encourage you, if you need assistance in executing on that, we'll be happy to help and support. I just got a text this morning from St. Vincent. In fact, there is an ISOC chapter there, the Internet Society being one of the key organizations in the support of national and regional IGFs. The floor is open for any questions regarding the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. All right, we can keep it moving. And I should also say that I encourage the private sector as well to support when we host these regional and national initiatives, that you participate actively for those of you in the technology space. Thank you. So we will move then on to, actually, Nigel, we can keep you on the floor for the spectrum update. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sharing some slides again. Harmonized spectrum management in the Caribbean, in fact, is something that the CTU has been involved with since the year 2006. And I'll give an update here in terms of what is going on at present with this work. Of course, our aim is to enhance expertise and deepen the harmonization of spectrum planning and management policies and practices across the region. We did a Caribbean spectrum management strategic plan back in 2016 with some funding from the IDB at the time. And that was a 3-year project, actually, that took us around the Caribbean, that allowed us to do multiple consultancy studies and produce some very, I would say, durable principles around spectrum planning and management, principles that still guide us today. Our work basically seeks to improve the coordination and use of radio frequencies so that for everything wireless these days that must work simultaneously and successfully, we have to have the appropriate coordination and planning. So this is what the work of the spectrum management is. We use 2 institutions, I would say, in the region. One we call the Spectrum Management Steering Committee. This is a small group of policymakers, like around the tables here, it related to spectrum management, but the real heavy lifting is done at the level of what is called the Spectrum Management Task Force. And what we've done here is apply the Internet's multi-stakeholder principle to regional spectrum management. So that Spectrum Management Task Force has spectrum regulators in it, which it ought to if you're trying to harmonize spectrum management practices around the Caribbean. But it also includes operating companies who use spectrum, representatives from them. It includes other representatives from industry, from academia, from other industry associations, and so on. So what we get is a well-rounded set of inputs to guide the development of our spectrum management harmonized principles for the Caribbean. So this task force is, as I said, a multi-stakeholder group. It would develop policy frameworks or spectrum, harmonized spectrum plans and the rest. And the way it's been working is that it develops an annual plan to address certain specific matters. The steering committee oversees that work and would make input into the priorities that the task force is looking at, or, well, apart from saying, well, you should be addressing this, they could also make some comment or give guidance in terms of the proposed approach that the task force is always taking. So what the secretariat, CTU secretariat does is it, again, facilitates both of the work of both of these groups. It's the secretarial function for it, but the work itself is chaired and run by the representatives from the member states. I mentioned that the task force develops an annual action plan. The current action plan addresses some 7 priority topic areas or thematic areas, right? One is, of course, harmonization, and what we seek to do is harmonize the allocations of frequencies among our countries, and that has multiple benefits. What it helps us to do is maybe develop some scale, in terms of the individual markets. If all the individual markets are utilizing spectrum in similar ways, we can create opportunities for the markets to work together so that we develop some market scale, make our region more attractive to investment, for example. And it also looks at bands of priority. When I say bands, I mean ranges of frequencies that are used for things like emergency communications or cellular communications, Wi-Fi, dynamic spectrum techniques, and so on. So that is, I would say, the core key area related to spectrum allocation that we address. A second current priority relates to the updating of our spectrum management policies. I mentioned that it was 2016 that the strategic plan was done, and while it has proved to be durable in terms of the policies that are in there, it is time that we review and update as appropriate. So that process is in train at present, but we are doing it without the benefit of development financing this time, so it's not going as quickly as we might have liked, as maybe we did the last time. So we are making slow but steady progress in terms of updating the policies in there. Emergency communications is another. Earlier, no, that was this morning's meeting. We were talking about disaster management and so on. So emergency communications is a fundamental, vital part of disaster preparedness and response. So the frequencies associated with that and the type of communications we need to facilitate are key. Spectrum pricing is the fourth priority. And there's a working group on spectrum pricing in the task force. Every 4 years, the ITU, which is the global manager of wireless spectrum, has the World Radio Communication Conference. The next one is in 2027. And the task force is well involved with developing Caribbean positions to take into that global conference. Digital broadcasting switchover in Jamaica, actually. They recently introduced digital broadcasting. They haven't yet turned off their analog yet, to my understanding. But this is a process that must come because the old analog equipment and services are becoming obsolescent. So Trinidad and Tobago actually is on the cusp of beginning its own digital transformation in terms of broadcasting.
the minister isn't quite in the room right now, but hopefully that'll happen sometime next year. And the last area is more or less maintaining our communications, our contacts information, so that communications between countries and between spectrum managers is as smooth as possible. So this is kind of the range of topics that we are handling in spectrum management. For 2025, what you see there, we have quarterly meetings of the Spectrum Management Task Force. The last one was 9th and 10th of September. It was a virtual meeting. The next one, which would also be virtual, would be scheduled for the 6th and 7th of November. We did host a Spectrum Management Conference in person in May of this year. That was in Trinidad and Tobago, and there was an in-person Spectrum Management Task Force meeting there. What's not on here is that the Spectrum Management Steering Committee also had a meeting, I think it was the end of April, where they reviewed the action plan of the task force for 2025 and gave feedback to the task force. At the Americas level, the Inter-American Telecoms Commission, that is CTEL, has a committee similar to, I guess, our task force, which is called Permanent Consultative Committee number 2, and that deals with spectrum topics. They're actually having their second meeting for the year as we speak, in Salvador, in Brazil. The ITU also has an annual regional radio communications seminar, where it's a training seminar where it's a capacity building opportunity for our spectrum practitioners at regulators and so on to learn how to undertake the work of spectrum management and also utilize the ITU procedures that are contained in the international radio regulations. This year it was in Honduras, and another activity we have is just maintaining of our repository on the CTU website, all the things that we need to keep our spectrum management going in the region. I think that's all I have really related to that SG. So if any questions about spectrum management, our spectrum management work, we would appreciate to hear.
All right, thank you very much. I see a hand. Please go ahead, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Melissa Sutherland, Liberty Caribbean Flow. So I want to commend the CTU regarding preparations for the World Radio Conference that is in 2027. Why? This year, or for this time in 2027, the CTU is well ahead in terms of just managing the process. And we have got some new people on board who are taking us through that. And Nigel, very happy about how we're going there. It's important for the mobile operators and every telco in the region, because at that conference, what is determined is the spectrum that will be used to roll out mobile and other technologies, not just mobile, satellite, other technologies in the next 7 to 10 years. So the future is very much decided there. So this work is super important. For this WRC 2027, I think it's about 80% of the agenda items are on satellite. So it's just showing the importance of satellite and what it means for the industry in the region. I wanted to just elevate what the CTU is doing here so that we can see how it benefits the entire region. And so I'm looking forward, I'm hopeful, Nigel, and hopefully you or Rodney can give some information as to how the companies can be involved. Yes, we are on the task force, but with the actual representation at the conference, for the reason that over the years that I've been doing this, I've noticed that the delegations that seem to have the most impact have the collaboration. It's cross-functional, it's government, it's private sector, it's other folks, and we tend to do government a lot. But if you pitch the companies, they may well be able to jump in and assist, because we do need to extend the collaboration, but great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. In terms of the collaboration, and especially at the conference, CTU, as a sector member of the ITU, can participate in the conference, but we don't really have any power. So the power belongs to the member states. And the strong delegations are those delegations that have the kind of collaborative membership that Melissa was speaking about. So I would encourage the member states who would be participating in the WRC to consider including appropriate industry players in their delegations. We do see it happening with other countries, so it's certainly something that we can consider as well.
Thank you. I would just frame it slightly differently. It's not that the CTU doesn't have any power, because the CTU is not the CTU Secretariat. The ministers sitting around the table are the CTU, and they certainly have a lot of power. And our role really is to coordinate, as we've been doing, to coordinate and support participation. And on the point of inclusion, say, the private sector and operators, we've done this before. We did this at the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference, in fact, in Bucharest. We had private sector members on our delegation, in particular addressing issues of the internet, some of the resolutions that dealt with the internet. So there's a facility. I mean, the ITU representative is here. He's like a deer caught in the headlights. Joking. But we can certainly support the participation, even if it's not government participation, because we see the large countries do this all the time. They go with large delegations in excess of 100, 150, 200 people to these conferences, because they know the implications when the spectrum is allocated, so they represent their interests. And the large countries understand that the interests of the governments are not always at odds with the interests of the private sector. So where we can collaborate and represent the national interests, then that is something that we seek to do.
Absolutely, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'll just just mention, and we want to welcome the Madame Marie-Lucienne Ratier from French Guiana. Welcome, and your delegation. Yes, we did accompany French Guiana to Suriname and to Suriname and Guyana, right. Just this year, in fact. And one of the things that came up was cross-border interference, in particular around, they share border with both Suriname, Guyana, and French Guiana share borders. And I know we've dealt with this in the past in St. Martin, but is there any advice in terms of cross-border interference? Is this something that is actually on the agenda of the task force?
Oh, you're asking if it is? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is. Coming out of that spectrum management strategic plan work that I mentioned, was some specific guidelines related to minimizing and resolving any cross-border interference. In terms of minimizing, what you do beforehand, it maybe is get some cross-border, some frequency coordination agreements between neighbors, right? And especially up the islands where in the northern eastern Caribbean, where you have Anguilla, St. Martin, French and Dutch St. Martin, St. Kitts, and a couple of the islands fairly close together there. They, in fact, had to work out a frequency sharing arrangement. And within the task force, what we've been able to do is enable agreements like that to be shared with other members so that they get guidance in terms of how to formulate similar agreements with their own neighbors. All right, so we have principles, we have examples, and we have the forum itself at which we which we utilize to create any new agreements that we need. In fact, the French territories, Martinique and Guadeloupe, with 5G, they've made proposals within the task force for frequency coordination with their English-speaking neighbors, Dominica, St. Lucia, and so on. So that's definitely on the agenda of the task force, and in fact, the task force is quite a good mechanism for dealing with it.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on in the interest of time unless there are other questions. But since you have the floor, and I know you have another presentation on the regional regulatory body, or at least an intervention, if not a full presentation, I'd like you to speak to that now, and then we'll take the presentation from Dr. Craig Ramlala on the AI task force, and then we'll take a break for 15 minutes.
Okay, yes, I do have a presentation. What's happening there? That's not mine.
That's mine.
Oh, that was Craig.
That's Craig.
Okay. Let's try again.
That's still mine.
Well, we can, if you want.
Yeah, you could go ahead.
We can take Craig's
Yeah,
presentation, then revert to you. Thanks. So you can leave it up, please.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Craig, just by way of introduction, Dr. Craig Ramlala's lecturer at University of the West Indies. He was on the UN high-level advisory body that prepared the UN Secretary General's input to the Global Digital Compact that was passed last year at United Nations General Assembly under the Pact for the Future. So he comes with a wealth of experience, a global network on artificial intelligence, and he is the chair of the AI task force for the CTU. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to present on behalf of the Caribbean AI Task Force. I wanted to cover a little bit of history about what is happening, a little bit about that UN process as well, so that we see where we fit in terms of the Caribbean. I know AI is a very well spoken of area right now. Okay, so I'm not, who do I, okay.
The clicker has no AGI.
Yeah. Okay, we're good. Okay. So just a little bit of history. Initially proposed in 2020 as part of the United Nations Secretary General's Roadmap for Digital Cooperation. In October 2023, from 2,500 nominations across the 5 UN regions, 39 AI experts called preeminent AI leaders were appointed to the United Nations Secretary General's high-level advisory body on AI, tasked with creating the guidelines, policies, and recommendations for governing AI for humanity. The body consisted of multiple members: the Minister of State of AI for United Arab Emirates, the Secretary of State for Digitalization and AI of Spain, Ambassador of Technology Advisor to the President of Kenya, the Special Advisor of AI to the President of Brazil, Senior Vice President of Google Alphabet, Chief Technology Officer of OpenAI, Chief Technology Officer of Sony Group, the Chief Responsible AI Officer of Microsoft, the International Policy Director of Stanford, and many more. This is to say that they aim for a very balanced group with governmental, academic, private sector, and CSO members. Next, please, if you can do it. I'll just say next. Yes, thank you. So our recommendations were included in the Global Digital Compact and through resolution accepted in the Pact for the Future on the 22nd of September 2024. I want to highlight the 3 major ones that will impact us in the Caribbean. Next, please. So a major one was the Global Network for AI Capacity Building, which should allow for trade, interoperability among systems, movement of persons, and so on. This one was obviously very dear to me because of what it meant for the Caribbean. During the 80th UNGA, and led by the governments of Saudi Arabia, Kenya, UNESCO, and UN ODET, along with the universities, private organizations, and countries of Japan, India, UAE, Pakistan, China, Denmark, and Kazakhstan, this initiative was launched for a global capacity development and AI network. Next, please. Additionally, we also recommended the implementation of the Independent International Scientific Panel on AI. Very importantly, the Global Dialogue on AI Governance, This is in implementation with the resolution adopted by the General Assembly on 26th of August 2025. And it is expected that member states here will participate in this governance dialogue. Next, please. Now, as we have heard of for the majority of yesterday, it is well understood that a regional approach to developing AI governance aids in scaling economies, interoperability, and regulatory alignment. Stronger bargaining positions outside of our region, especially for the global dialogue in AI, capacity building, harmonized safety guardrails, and avoidance of duplication. So this is not a new idea. Many regions have already done this, such as the European Commission's AI Continent Action Plan and the African Continent AI Strategy. There's also the ASEAN Guide on AI Governance and Ethics, the OECD's AI Principles, and the UNESCO Charter on AI Ethics. And so, under the auspices of the CTU, who was formally mandated by the CARICOM to advance a single ICT space, the CTU Caribbean AI Task Force exists to operationalize and accelerate the CARICOM single ICT space in the AI domain. These are some of the commitments of the task force. They would include to conduct a comprehensive assessment of the current status of AI, to identify challenges, opportunities, and best practices in AI adoption, to engage with multiple stakeholders to gather diverse perspectives and insights, to develop a set of recommendations for regionally harmonized AI policies, to outline a strategic roadmap for the implementation and enforcement of these policies, and to provide guidelines for the next steps of the AI policies implementation. These are the current members of the task force. I know it's quite difficult to see here. They currently consist of 36 members. Many of them are in this room. They include persons from the private sector, the NGOs, public sector, and multilaterals. And of course, the same with the UN advisory body, we aim to strike that balance with including multiple stakeholders. So I want to highlight and thank the support of the CARICOM Secretariat and for the inclusion of the Deputy Secretary General of the CARICOM in the task force and the support of the ITU in the task force as well. We also have an advisory board. This advisory board will consist of members from multilaterals and representatives from other regions who will give informed advice to the process. Their mandate is on this slide, and they will operate in an advisory capacity to help develop the recommendations and so on. This is the current timeline. When I served in the UN H-Lab, we were given 2 months to create the initial recommendations and guidelines. And they said that that was light speed. Because of the amount of data and dedication of our current Caribbean AI task force, we split the members up into 4 working groups shown on the, well, it's supposed to be on the slide. We split the members into 4 working groups consisting of policy and governance, capacity building and education, innovation and industry, and data and infrastructure. And we completed our interim report within 1 month. I want to showcase some of these recommendations and guidelines in the next couple slides. So we were operating at warp speed if UN was operating at light speed. Right. Yeah, that was there, yeah. Okay, so these are our guiding principles. So we aim to anchor a Caribbean AI strategy in these set of core principles. These principles will serve as our foundation for subsequent policy, regulation, and investment decisions. These will include AI must safeguard human dignity by aligning with human rights, ensuring transparency, and preventing bias and discrimination. It should bridge digital divides, expand opportunities, and retain talent through inclusive education-driven initiatives. There should be strong governance to ensure and secure data sovereignty, balance innovation, and protect against misuse in vulnerable economies. We really need a unified regional framework, as many of the other regions have. And so we would look at shared resources to overcome inefficiencies, attract investment, and curb brain drain. AI must also drive long-term resilience and sustainable solutions aligned with the SDGs, addressing climate, economic, and social vulnerabilities. These are our preliminary recommendations. Very briefly, they are to establish a harmonized regional AI policy framework and governance mechanism, to strengthen data governance and digital infrastructure for AI, to facilitate AI innovation and industry development in key sectors, to build human capacity, skills, and awareness for the AI age, promote multi-stakeholder engagement and collaborative governance. I also want to say and really reiterate that these are preliminary recommendations, and also I want to acknowledge the countries who have already developed and the countries who are developing their own recommendations. Our aim is to complement these strategies. So, most of these preliminary recommendations, as well as the annexes that we have for interim report, will be given by next week. And we will be out for consultations and feedback from our various stakeholders so that we get that final report in June 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the floor is open for comments.
Yeah, maybe I could ask the academic a question. When I talked about the Internet Governance Forum work, and I said we were looking at how maybe we could incorporate AI into the Internet Governance Policy Framework, we have this going on in parallel, the AI task force coming up with recommendations. Do you see, do you have any opinion maybe on whether we should have a separate sort of strategy, policy for AI different from internet governance, or should we try to synergize them in some way?
I think when we look at it, digital is one big package. And I think as much as possible, the aim should always be to synergize. And I think that's part of the multi-stakeholder process, the consultation feedback, and I think that if both of them are coming out of the CTU, we need to synergize as much as possible. And I think that that is quite fair and obvious as we go forward, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You mentioned some countries that have established a task force. I know Jamaica certainly has and is well advanced in terms of its development of national strategies. Are there any private sector companies? We know of Intellibus, and we've received extensive presentations from Intellibus. Are there any others outside of Jamaica, companies that are doing any interesting things in AI?
Yes, we do have some other private organizations like IBM, Grace Kennedy, who exist outside of the region itself, but we do have our diaspora that is out there who have contributed to the task force. And they are there as well. So we have private organizations, CSOs, NGOs. We have foundations such as the Patrick McGovern Foundation and so on the task force as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments about the AI task force? Okay, if not, Craig, thank you very much for that presentation. And the last one we'll take before we go to break will be on the regional regulatory body that we have been working on. So, and that will be done by Nigel Casimir.
Okay. Yes, I do have a slide. Is it coming up? All right. Yeah, so the regional regulatory body, I'll just give a background of where this came from and where we're at and what we expect in the short term going forward. Okay, so CARICOM head's mandate, February 2021, among other things, in the CARICOM head's discussion of single ICT space at that meeting that they had in 2021, one of the things they asked for work to be done on was the examination of the feasibility of establishing a single regional telecommunications regulator. All right, and the CTU took up that request in our capacity as coordinator or lead agency in the CARICOM ICT cluster. And we are the ones, in fact, right, and that cluster is the group that put together the vision and roadmap for CARICOM single ICT space. That document that was done back in 2017. So we took up the challenge. We commissioned a report with the support from the ITU, an initial report that was completed in December of that year. And it produced some conceptual considerations, but also identified areas for further evaluation of technical experts in the region. So the CTU then put together a technical conference, and that's one of the fora that the CTU can put together by way of its mandate. And when we check back, this was really only the second time that we've done something like that. We brought together, again, a multi-stakeholder group, and what they did was identify optional models for harmonizing of the regulatory function across the Caribbean. There was always some challenge, though, with achieving a goal of a single regulator, but it was left to another study, which I can talk about now, to examine the options that this technical conference had come up with. So that technical conference was in September of 2022. And again, with the ITU's kind support, we were able to engage a consultant to do some research to examine the various models. So they undertook further research, and by, I don't know, May or so of 2024, had completed a report with some specific recommendations. The recommendations of this report was put before last year's ICT Week General Conference of Ministers, and the ministers, in fact, supported the recommended approach from the consultant's report. So we essentially, though, realized that we had some implementation hurdles to overcome, and the ITU has continued its support for us to study what might be the best way to go ahead to implement the recommendations of the consultant. I'll get to it in a little bit. What did the consultant study, however? What other models did they examine? What opinions did they get? What consultations were done in order to produce this report? So the list of organizations that were consulted or examined is listed there, starting right in our own region with ECTEL. CTU gave some thoughts. The African Telecommunications Union, Communication Regulators Association of South Africa, the West Africa Telecommunications Regulators Assembly, the Asia Pacific Telecommunity, and the Body of European Regulators for Electronic Communications, or BEREC, in addition to consultations with at least 12 of our Caribbean regulators and organizations. So, and I think it's safe to say that an extensive series of consultations and study was done in terms of putting together the recommendations. And what came out? What came out was that, you know, this goal of a single regulator is not a short-term undertaking, because a single regulator for the Caribbean would require legislative support in each of our member states. And while it might be a laudable goal, it's not something that could take place in the near term. So the general recommendation was that, okay, well, if not a legal solution, at least we can get the regulators together to work together. You know, so they can come together in I guess a more voluntary sort of an assembly, in a body. That's just a generic term. A body for regulators by regulators is a body that the regulators themselves will run, and manage the discussions and the studies within the work of that body. It would be a body that wouldn't possess direct regulatory power. That would still remain with the individual national regulators. But if they can work together, if they can collaborate to formulate appropriate or sensible or advantageous policies for implementation generally, then that would be very beneficial to the region. Right? So the overall objective is faster collaboration, is to foster collaboration, information sharing, consensus, also capacity building. All right, so we're talking about CARICOM single ICT space. So yes, we are looking at CARICOM regulators, and they would manage their working groups or whatever. One of the recommendations as well was that maybe we could use one of the existing organizations to serve as a secretariat for this regulatory body, whatever it is called. All right, and multiple organizations were looked at. The consultant looked at the CARICOM Competition Commission, the CTU, and OCR, that's the Organization of Caribbean Utilities Regulators. They are more than just an ICT regulator, however. And we've also had a recommendation to consider ECTEL. And ECTEL is a regulatory authority. It's, I guess, a kind of a multi-country regulator, but that coordinates the work of its 5 national regulators. So that is something that is being looked at right now as well. And financing is something that would have to be worked out, but the prospect was that the body would be financed, the work of the body would be financed primarily by the members themselves. So that was that's kind of the current status of thinking in terms of the report of the consultant. Going forward, we would be seeking to enhance the communication between our policymakers and regulators, all right, basically to maximize the initial number of regulators who would contribute to this regional regulatory body. And I say policymakers, I mean, the ministers, the governments, and so on. So at this ICT week, we would be raising the issue again at our ministers' conference tomorrow to reaffirm the ministerial support for the approach. And on Thursday, when we have our regulators forum, we'll be gathering feedback from regulators about what's the best way to go forward to implement such an approach. After this week, however, we will be fostering further engagement with the regulators, basically to try to identify a name that they think is appropriate. What would be the appropriate terms of reference, or should I say to ratify the appropriate terms of reference, and identify what organization might be best placed to serve that kind of secretariat function for the initial formation of the regional regulatory body, to identify what maybe are the first set of priority topics this body could look at. And also, well, from that, having done so, to propose an initial work plan. So this is kind of where we are and where we think we would be going in the very near term. And we look forward to the discussions that are planned on this score tomorrow and Thursday. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Any questions, comments? I want to thank the ITU for the support that it has given, and also the Commonwealth Connectivity Agenda. They held a workshop here today as well, and they've been constant partners, and they supported the study tour to the West African states, where we engaged with the West African Telecoms Regulatory Assembly, and the African Telecoms Union, as well as some other regional regulators within Africa. And they have some really good models to look at. And of course, here in the Caribbean, we have ECTEL that we've seen as a good model, but of course it is limited in scope to the Eastern Caribbean states. So we are working on building, as you mentioned, on all of these existing bodies of knowledge to come up with a workable framework that would enjoy the support of the regulators. If there are no questions, we will take a break at this point for 15 minutes, and we will resume with a presentation on the Smart Seas Initiative, another initiative supported by the ITU, providing connectivity to small-scale fishers while at sea, implemented in Trinidad and Tobago, and the possibility of implementing as well in some of our other member states. So thank you for your attention. We'll take a break for 15 minutes. Is there coffee outside? Is there coffee? I can't say if there's coffee. Maybe if there is, someone should say, but if not, maybe just stretch your legs for 15 minutes and be back so that we can finish on time, if not early. Thank you.
is a good plan to try to start, but let's see how much of our audience we can get. Okay, folks, we're going to make a start. We're looking to see if, waiting a couple of minutes to see if a few more came in, but I think once we get started, persons will come in. So we are at that point in the agenda where we're going to talk about the Smart Seas initiative. This was a joint project of CTU, ITU, and the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. And the main consultant on that was Mr. Tariq Mohammed. And Tariq is going to give us a presentation on Smart Seas now. So over to you, Tariq.
Testing. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nigel, for the introduction. My name is Tariq Mohammed, as he mentioned, from Trinidad and Tobago. This afternoon, I'll be talking about the Smart Seas project. Just waiting for my slides to come up on the screen. Thank you. Perfect. Oh. And also waiting to find the clicker. Okay, next slide, please. So, I know we're a bit late in the day. I hope we all had a very good lunch. I know I enjoyed the fish that we had for lunch, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, fishing. Fishing being one of the world's most dangerous jobs, with thousands of lives being lost annually in this sector. Small-scale fishers in particular, which are those that ply their trade in these small undecked vessels, comprise about 90% of the world's fisheries fleet, and about 40% of the fish that is caught daily. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Right. Small-scale fishers are, however, quite vulnerable, both from their lives as well as livelihoods perspectives. Lives in the sense that they are physically vulnerable to a number of disasters that may occur out at sea, and livelihoods as they are both digitally as well as financially excluded. ICTs are, of course, critical for both lives as well as livelihoods. Next, please. Next, please. Thank you. And simply having ICTs is not enough. An enabling environment is essential for affordable, accessible ICTs. Next, please. That's where the Smart Seas project comes into play. The Smart Seas project is a joint initiative of the ITU, International Telecommunication Union, CTU, which we all know and love, and the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, supported by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Its aim is to increase the resilience and ultimately preserve the lives of small-scale fishers through ICTs. And of course, in this phase, we are looking at the enabling environment. Next, please. We are currently covering 4 countries under this first phase of the project, which include Barbados, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago. And if you look on the left, you see this weirdly shaped red box. That box represents the Trinidad and Tobago Search and Rescue Region, or SRR, which is just under 62,500 square nautical miles. The project focuses on 4 main areas, including policy and regulation, operations, capacity, and technology. And though these are instantiated through this scope, the aim is to have its outputs, outcomes, and impacts transferable both to other sectors and underserved communities and extensible to the rest of the Caribbean region as well as worldwide. Next, please. The Smart Seas project comprises 4 main outputs, including the gap analysis, Smart Seas toolkit, procurement of equipment, as well as an agenda. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Thank you. Its main outcomes are to have a capacitated ecosystem as well as strengthening the enabling environment, while its ultimate impact is that of disaster-resilient small-scale fishers. Next, please. Okay, I have the clicker now. Thank you. The gap analysis on the project focuses on 6 main areas, including UN conventions and recommendations, the ecosystem, policy and regulatory environments, operations, and capacity. And we see a number of gaps for the 4 Smart Seas countries here, as well as key findings in green. Most notably, I've highlighted the operations, which we'll talk about in a bit, which include the availability and access to meteorological and sea state data, radio coverage within the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, which is that red box that I showed earlier, GMDSS certification by Coast Guards and other key personnel, as well as early warning systems. Most notably, a number of these gaps have motivated the development of CITEL as well as WTDC, which are the ITU development sector contributions. Now, many of them have taken the shape of IAPs, inter-American proposals, through the kind support of Trinidad and Tobago, TAT, as well as the Bahamas through IRCA. So thank you both for this support. Here is just a sample of some of the data. Blue is good, red and orange not so good. And we do see a lot of red and orange. But the green is good, and we see that as the project has progressed, we have increased that green and cut down on the red and orange. This all fits into the overarching Smart Seas Toolkit, which provides a number of free online resources around the lines of regulation, operations, and capacity within the maritime ecosystem. Yes. Yeah. Sure, no problem. Yeah. Sure. So, right. In the chart on the left, we have examined the 4 countries and their coverage of maritime in universal service frameworks. Only one of the 4 Smart Seas countries have done so, while the other 3 have not. The 2 charts in the center and right represent the notification status of administrations to the Radio Communications Bureau under the International Telecommunication Union. Before Smart Seas began in 2021, only 2 of the CTU's 20 member states have ever done so, but I'm happy to report that as of today, we have increased that number from 2 to 4, doubling it. So now both Trinidad and Tobago as well as St. Vincent and the Grenadines are notified, and we have 3 more countries that are in the process of notifying at this time. Okay, so the radio regulations is the, as Nigel was discussing earlier on spectrum management, is the international treaty on managing spectrum. This includes the maritime portions of spectrum. Under Radio Regulation 20.16, countries are required to notify the ITU on what coast stations and ship stations have radio equipment. And this is important for safety at sea. So if there's a disaster out at sea, persons will know who to contact and how to reach them. And that could be through radio, satellite phones, and other communication means, whether that be EPIRB, SATs, search and rescue transponders, and otherwise. What we've seen in the Caribbean is that most of our countries have never notified the ITU on any of this information. And as we've explored that with countries, we've realized that even the administrations themselves have not been collecting that data to notify. Yes. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yes. In Martinique?
Smart Sea?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And perhaps maybe countries don't know that they have to indicate because in our case, I know when we had the people that came over from Western Africa, that they eventually left and they craft.
Yes.
Perhaps it was the rescue mission from Martinique that was called upon. So
Yes.
I'm just asking you whether or not you're seeing that information in your information framework that you have.
So the countries themselves, okay, so there are 2 things. So firstly, there is the actual mapping of these countries. So you said Martinique is responsible for your area. So the countries tend to have informal agreements on this. So right now, that has never been officialized. But it's, yes, it's never been ratified, but it's an informal agreement that the member states have been doing based on recommendations from the IMO, International Maritime Organization.
We'll pick that up with our maritime protection unit to see whether
Sure, of course. Certainly, thank you. Right. So we've also developed the Online Smart Seas Toolkit, which provides online freely available resources on the ITU, CTU, and TATS websites on areas in maritime ecosystem, including regulation for tracking compliance with, among other things, the radio regulations and all of the obligations that member states of the ITU are required to do. Operations, strengthening the ecosystem, as well as capacity, which is focused on knowledge, skills, and resources in a Caribbean context. Most recently, we've also installed VHF equipment for the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, which is responsible for the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center within our search and rescue region. This was done in the Chaguaramas Bay area due to a coverage gap that existed. This installation included a VHF antenna, a point-to-point link at the Coast Guard's headquarters, radio software, and of course, training for the Coast Guards themselves. And this is just an example showing the testing. All the pins on the map show some edge cases testing that were done on pirogues through the Coast Guard to ensure that all those nooks and crannies in the islands, yes, in the various bays were covered. And I'm happy to report that of the mean opinion score, we have received an average testing of 4.7 out of 5, which represents a pretty good signal testing result. Of course, we cannot simply buy and install equipment, but must also train and certify them. And the GMDSS is the internationally recognized certification scheme. What we've realized is that many of the operators either do not have GMDSS certification or that these certifications have expired. And so we've provided training for 10 Coast Guard radio personnel from Trinidad and Tobago to undertake that training, which they completed through online as well as in-person sessions to develop their theoretical as well as practical capacities. We've also done some training for the fisherfolk. And yes, Nigel, that's you. We've had some radio training at the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, where we invited disaster management agencies, fisherfolk, regulators from all 4 of the Smart Seas countries who undertook this 3-day radio training program to develop their capacity on the essential radio skills for handheld radios for small-scale fishers. So with that in mind, we do have a number of other items coming up. Most notably, Phase 2 of the Smart Seas project, which sets out to continue policy and regulatory for the 4 countries, and we are open to supporting other countries within the Caribbean. In addition to the installation of the VHF equipment, there is need to continue testing and maintaining this equipment, as well as assessing the coverage gaps that may exist, not only within Trinidad and Tobago, but all 4 of the Smart Seas countries, and seeing how we can fill those gaps. We're also extending the scope to now cover meteorological, which is marine weather and sea state data, and supporting coastal and marine early warning systems, as based on consultations, some gaps do exist in being able to deploy and leverage the early warning system data, as well as supporting that entire ecosystem in terms of responsibilities, roles, etc. Finally, on the scope of capacity building, we are looking at extending and institutionalizing fit-for-purpose training and sustainable procurements of radio equipment for fisherfolk, coast stations, and other key actors within the ecosystem. So I do also want to mention, Nigel mentioned earlier when he was talking about spectrum, that the ITU has a regional radio communication seminar, the RRS. Our project had motivated actually an entire unit on that in supporting member states who were present on filling the notification gaps to the Radio Regulation 20.16. So we've been seeing some traction and interest from other countries and other private sector, regional and international partners, and we would like to continue echoing the need for support and collaboration, not just within the countries that we have here today and within the telecommunications sector, but as we could probably see, we're not just looking at telecommunications, we're also looking at marine, we're looking at fisheries, we're looking at meteorological, and most importantly, we're looking at saving lives. So with that, I just want to thank you. Sir?
I understand the spectrum allocation and management. I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand the spectrum management and the spectrum allocation, but the issue of who is the governing body within the region, does this feed into Caribbean impacts or does it feed into the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard? How does that interact with, let's say, other similar bodies in Barbados and Grenada? I'm trying to get a sense of, where collaboration needs to take place going forward.
Collaboration between the various Coast Guards. So between the Coast Guards themselves in ensuring coverage, well, not ensuring coverage, but ensuring that the regulators, the ITU, and other agencies that could provide coverage in areas where gaps exist, know that gaps exist, so that we could look at some financing for that. So that's with respect to coverage. With respect to the overall ecosystem, it would be between the Coast Guards, the regulators, the meteorological organizations in your country. Actually, I do have a very nice map here of all the different actors in the ecosystem, which I was saving as a backup. But one of the things that we did when we started the project was we sat down and we said, who are the different actors? What are their roles? What are their responsibilities? What are the various national regulations, the regional frameworks, and international treaties that fit within this sector? Well, not just within this sector, but across the cross-cutting sectors of maritime, telecommunications, fisheries, and meteorology. And so we do see that there are a number of actors that need to work together, and I'm happy to chat with you on that afterwards and help you map out your local actors. Thank you.
And I want to commend you highly. I think that you've done some very good work here. This is something that seemingly sits below the radar, forgive the pun. So I'm glad that you were able to bring a semblance of how this thing can be better coordinated, because I believe that there are state agencies in our various territories that perhaps maybe are not working collaboratively, and the fact that you have brought it to this level means that we now have a cause of action. So I want to thank you for some very important work here. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
On this Smart Seas, Minister, certainly, as Tariq has said, the focus was on the Trinidad and Tobago search and rescue area, those 4 countries. But from inception, it was always envisaged that the findings from this project would be applicable to the rest of the Caribbean, right? And Tariq could correct me if I'm wrong, but the outputs of the Smart Seas project are available for perusal by, the other members of the CTU. So there's a kind of a roadmap that was available.
And just to touch on what Nigel mentioned, all of the outputs that we've developed is available on the CTU's website. We also have a compiled status of everything that we've done to date that we're happy to share. And I hope that these lessons learned over the past few years will help streamline some of the other Caribbean challenges that we face.
Okay, thank you very much, Tariq. We're going to move on now. A slight change to the agenda. We're going to deal with our cybersecurity update now. Mr. Shannon Osepa and Mr. Cedric Pradell Shannon is a consultant with the CTU now, and Cedric is the director of the Caribbean Cybersecurity Agency, and I'm sure they will tell us very much about what's going on with this, with the work of the CCA. Actually, it has a different acronym. So, over to you.
Yes, okay, good afternoon to all. Good afternoon to ministers. Can I please get the presentation? There's a joint CTU assay presentation.
What's it called? What's it called?
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity.
So basically, while we're waiting for the presentation, what we're trying to do is we do have a few challenges in the Caribbean, and especially as small island development states, and we cannot solve all these problems by ourselves. And this is exactly what we have been doing, is to collaborate with others. Okay, so if you look in the Caribbean, this is our reality. So we have challenges with respect to capacity building, policies, national cybersecurity strategies, research, CSIRT, collaboration, funding. So basically we have a lot of challenges. And there is a reason why I did put them in red, the ones that you're seeing, because these are the areas that ASIP is going to collaborate with us to get them addressed. When we look at all the challenges that I did mention, of course, it's not only that we have challenges, because we have been looking at ways how we can address those. And within CARICOM, we have been looking at the cybersecurity strategy, starting in 2016, where we had, let's say, an old action plan, cybersecurity and cybercrime action plan. But given the developments nowadays, we have been looking how we can get that plan updated. So in the old plan, we had the first 5 areas that we have been looking at, and in the new plan, we will also be looking at one new area, which is incident management. Right now, within, let's say, the task force, we are updating that plan, and that action plan should be available within a couple of weeks. So we are aiming for mid, let's say, October to get, let's say, the strategy completed. And then we will be willing and able to share that with the wider community. If you look at the plan, it focuses on a few quite important areas. The first one is public awareness, education, and advocacy. The second one, capacity development and capacity building. The third, enhancing and harmonizing technical standards and infrastructure. Policy, institutional, regulatory framework, regional and international cooperation. And this is exactly what we're doing with ASIP. ASIP is the Caribbean, the French territories, let's say, cybersecurity agency. And finally, we are focusing also on incident management. So those areas that I did mention or did put, let's say, in red, these are the areas that we will be collaborating with ASIP to get those addressed. And now I would like to give Mr. Cedric Pradel, who is the Executive Director of ASIP, the opportunity to explain all these funny things that they are doing in the French territories.
Thank you. Honorable ministers, distinguished guests, the digital transformation underway across our Caribbean territories is a powerful driver of modernization, economic development, and public service efficiency. But as you know, in cyberspace, the threat is polymorphic. Traditional cybersecurity is based on fortress. We compare the cybersecurity to a fortress, but this fortress is under siege. But the threat we now face has rendered this strategy insufficient. We must shift to a more agile posture, one that resembles more to asymmetric warfare. We need to go into the field. What that mean? That means we need to anticipate the threats. We need to get a posture, more a proactive posture. This challenge is not the question to change our strategy. The question is, how can we evolve to a proactive posture? We to an action. With the CTU, we led a project of Caribbean cybersecurity incident response community. Because in our region, where vulnerabilities are often amplified by geographical dispersion and resource constraints, the proactive approach offers a unique opportunity to strengthen regional cooperation, mutualize intelligence. Intelligence is the key to anticipate the risk, to anticipate the threats. In this project, we built this project around three work package. The first one is the governance. The question of the governance is essential because we need to define the same language. When I talk about the language, of course, you know the question of French, English, or Spanish. The question is the technical language. We need to speak with the same word, with the same matrix, to appreciate the risk. To warn my neighbor, I need to share the same appreciation of the risk. The second one is the creation of the observatory. The observatory is really essential too, because if we want to steering our strategy, we need to know what happened on our territories, because we need to adapt our territory, we need to adapt our strategy. The CSIRT. CSIRT is not just like a firefighters. CSIRT is an organization, a living organization, who can give us the opportunity to adapt our strategy, to adapt our rules to the real threat. That's why in this community, or in our project, we plan to develop a community of CSIRT. Why this community? We need this community to learn to share information, to learn together about the different experience, the different incident. And of course, we propose to develop a regional CSIRT because, as Shernot said, for the French territories, we build a CSIRT, a shared CSIRT between the different territories, because alone we are not able to develop our own CSIRT. The last one is the key of tomorrow. It's the key of tomorrow because we need to develop our own resources with the training, awareness, and we need to communicate. We need to communicate because if we build CSIRT, we have to learn to our public or private actor to use this CSIRT. In today's rapidly evolving threats landscape, we invite you to support the development of a proactive cybersecurity strategy. Investing in proactive security means more than protecting our digital assets. It's a strategic act of sovereignty, a commitment to resilience and preparation for the challenges of tomorrow. In our region, where vulnerabilities are often amplified by geographical dispersion and resource constraints, the proactive approach and the project that we lead with the CTU, the CSIRT project, offer a unique opportunity to strengthen regional cooperation, mutualize intelligence capabilities, and protect critical sector. Protect critical sector don't mean that we are going to share critical information. It's completely different. Essentially, we need to step out of our fortress to fight proactively on every front because the threat is really organized. Together, we can lead this transformation for our territories. Don't let us not wait for the next crisis to move. Thank you for your attention.
I think it's also very important, as the Secretary General Rodney Taylor did mention, we at the CTU are also looking for us to expand, let's say, our territory. It's not always, most of the times we in the Caribbean, let's say mostly English-speaking Caribbean, I'm not a native English speaker neither, so we are looking somewhere else, and we do have a lot of neighbors that we could be engaged with. And this is exactly what we are doing with the French territories. So by collaborating with the French, which is also in the Caribbean, we will be focusing on how can we focus on the more resilience Caribbean, and not always looking, let's say, to the north, but close by here in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Any questions for Shannon and Cedric? Yes, we are not letting you get away.
Yes,
Grenada.
Good afternoon to everyone. Yes, I do have a question. Just trying to understand the study and the research, and how does that collaborate with CARICOM impacts?
So, yes, okay. So basically I went very quick through I just mentioned the areas, but basically this is a CARICOM impacts, let's say, report. Permit me to give you some background. Around 2013, 2014, we did experience a lot of cyber attacks in the Caribbean. And back then, head of states came together and they were discussing how can we address this issue. And they gave CARICOM impacts, let's say, the mandate to work on a holistic cyber security and cyber action plan. So, and that plan was published in 2016. So this, and CTU, so back then you had different, let's say, stakeholders, of which CTU was one of those. We had LACNIC, Organization of Eastern, OAS, several other organizations, ITU, all of them came together and they did draft that action plan. But given that things have changed, and then in 2024, last year, we came together again with the same actors and with some new ones to see how we can update that plan. So in the old plan, we had, let's say, the 5 first areas that I did mention, and in the new plan, which we are working on right now, we will be also adding incident management. So this is not a CTU-led initiative, it's a CARICOM-wide, CARICOM Impacts project, of which CTU is giving a contribution.
Okay, thanks for that clarity.
Yes.
And also to highlight, I guess later on we'll see some figures. For example, the number of certs you highlight in red because they're critical, because I know there was a funded project under the World Bank for the OECS countries to formulate a cert. It is called the CAD-TP project, and so you'll see more certs coming on board. There was a structure in place. All work done through, yes, the World Bank and CARICOM Impacts as well. So, for example, in Grenada, we're ahead because we already have a cert, like Trinidad and Tobago and some of the other islands, and we're building on that with a SOC, as you highlight. I see you didn't separate the two. They go together, yes, and it's important. And leveraging our CARICOM neighbors, for example, Santo Domingo, who also has full SOC. And as you rightly highlighted, we're small, so it's important that we come together, especially from a proactive measure, to actually address that. And we're in Grenada, we're actually building a physical infrastructure building for that as well to support the OECS countries. Yes.
Yes. So basically what we're going to do, that action plan is divided into 6 areas, as I did mention. Each one of these areas, we will be working with specific organizations. So, for example, public awareness, education, and advocacy, we will be working with certain organizations. Number 5, for example, regional and international cooperation. This is exactly what we're doing with ASIP. So based on the organizations that can assist us with that specific topic, and then we will be collaborating with them. But this action plan will be the point of departure that we're going to use.
Okay, great. Happy that you highlight that, because the EU LAC, together with Dominican Republic, is really willing to strengthen on the SOC side. So I'm happy to hear that you're working with different organizations in specific areas to build it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we thank the speakers again. And we will stick with the topic of cybersecurity and take a presentation from the Universal Postal Union. Mr. Tracy Hackshaw would give us an update in terms of their projects in the same vein. And here he is. If we could get his presentation projected, please.
Thank you very much, Nigel, Estri, ministers. So last year, I presented what we plan to do. So the good news is I'm coming to report on what we have done since the last meeting, which is always good news. But maybe some data is helpful. So one of the things that you're wondering, why is the UPU in a CTU meeting? Well, one of the things you need to understand, I think, is that many of the ministries in the region do also carry the telecoms and post together, which is, I think, several ministries in the region carry it together. And they historically have been one and the same brother, sister, 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 how you see it, communication. As the digital economy drives forward, one still cannot work without the other. Because guess what, when you buy stuff online, how do you get it to your homes? Normally through the post, courier, the sector that does that, logistics, etc. So at the UPU, this is what we do. We look after the sector with the physical beats the digital. In many cases as well, these posts in the region, as well as around the world, are becoming one-stop shops. So they offer digital services, e-government services, and for those in the region, we all know that if you're doing passports and driver's permits, even social services, you tend to find that access centers are being deployed, and in many cases, the postal network is one of those access center points or access points because of their far and wide reach. But because of that, and because of the fact they are critical infrastructure, they're also susceptible to attacks. So as the physical meets the digital, you find that the post itself is now being seen by the threat landscape as a major attack point because of its lack of resources that they tend to be very small operations in the region in terms of their technology. They're very manual still, and their technology departments are very small, like one person, if so many. There are 650,000 post offices around the world, which is quite a large number, as you can imagine. And many of those post offices around the world are part of this thrust towards digital transformation, as well as the telecoms operators, etc. Now, as you move forward with this, including offering digital financial services, e-wallets, etc., I'm not sure if you can see everything on this slide, but the bottom part of the slide is Latin America and the Caribbean. this is where our cyber hygiene practices are largely lacking. So the top parts will be the Western Europe and North America and so on, but we are even, in some cases, below the African region in terms of our cyber hygiene best practices. And we are in the red, under 50% in many cases in terms of what we're doing. And one of the major issues that we found in a recent survey is that budgets for cyber hygiene are not keeping up with the increase in workloads. So even though cyber attacks are on the rise, you find that the budget allocation to cyber hygiene, cyber security, cyber resilience is not keeping up with this, in some cases even decreasing. So what do we do? So there's a growing need for cybersecurity and cyber resilience. The pandemic has obviously driven many things online, including services, etc. You find there are less bills coming to you now. They're coming electronic, but not less bills coming to you. Obviously, more bills are coming, but they're coming to you electronically, not in physical. And payment services have now moved into the digital realm to a large extent. Delivery services have moved online. I'm sure many of you have experienced pre-pandemic. You can now you've seen many food services coming up, food apps, etc. All of these is part of the delivery economy, as we call it, all part of the sector that we call the postal logistics sector. Now, cyber attacks are on the increase globally, and the Caribbean is no stranger to this. As a matter of fact, there are several attacks in the Caribbean that are not listed here that remain confidential, but many of you in this room know who they are, who have been attacked in this region. And you are susceptible more than most to cyber attacks because of the lack of resources that your postal sector has. So what are we trying to do to help you as the UPU? We have implemented a cyber resilience strategy, which I'm the head of, and we are taking a multifaceted approach. One of the approaches that I mentioned last year was the fact that we are the only United Nations agency to run a top-level domain, so .post. Obviously, if just again to explain it for those who understand why you're talking about .post, .post is a top-level domain that the UPU runs, meaning that we vet every single applicant for a .post domain. Therefore, when you see an email address or a website with a .post extension, you can be guaranteed that is not a spoofed website, and therefore phishing emails, etc., will not be the case with that. With other top-level domains, in many cases you can't guarantee that, especially the more popular ones like .com, etc. There's not going to be a history lesson about that today. We had a session on Monday discussing it with the Jamaica sector. So suffice it to say that I'm encouraging you to take a look at the .post domain. And there are many people in this room, I think. I'm seeing Belize here as one example. And I'll mention others as we go forward who are doing this as we speak. We also have a shared services platform where not only do we offer the top-level domain, but also email services, hosting services, certificates, secure DNS, etc. We also have a secure.post portal, which is coming up bit by bit. But on that portal, we'll be having a serious cyber awareness activities, learning, potentially areas where you can actually test your environments. That's coming up shortly. We'll have a test.secure.post portal for you to test your email, test your website, see how secure they are, and what you can do to improve, and we can help with that. And lastly, but certainly no means least, what I'm about to talk today is what I mentioned last year. We're about to launch our Postal Information Sharing Analysis Center. You talked about certs and CSerts in the last session. This is what you call a cert on steroids. An ISAC is a global view of the sector that we are talking about. So it could be financial services, transportation, etc. In this case, post and logistics. The UPU is about to launch a post ISAC where we will be working with agencies, global agencies, like first, who is the Association of CSerts, Global Cyber Alliance, You heard of ICANN this morning, this afternoon. ICANN is part of this as well. Most of the global alliances involved in this cybersecurity are partnering with us to get this moving. Our strategy with the UPU involves, we are one of the UN agencies that actually run software. We sell and operate software to the posts. Very few agencies in the UPU, in the United Nations have that, so we are ISO 27001 certified, and at the edge of the network you'll see our security strategy listed there. Our framework is based around this strategy, and as we go forward, I will show you now our post-ISAC, I'm just going to skip past because of time, our post-ISAC strategy. So this website will be, this presentation will be available to you afterwards. I'm going to show you here. Well, first of all, let me put this up. The starter package I mentioned earlier, the funding we have available, is available to Caribbean posts. This QR code, for ministers in particular, is something I want to encourage you to take a look at, because we have some funding available for you. If you haven't yet applied, and I'm going to show you who has applied shortly and what the status of those applications are, you can get funding to begin this digital transformation journey with some funding available. For not a lot of money, but some money to get you going. Right? This is under the UPU CTU MOU, which is why I'm here today. An MOU was signed in 2023 with the Secretary General of the CTU and our Director General in Bern, Switzerland. And the fruits of that labor are as follows. We've done work in Barbados, we've done digital readiness assessment in Barbados, and we are hoping that they are moving forward. We are trying to keep track of that. Is Barbados in the room? Barbados here? Yes, Barbados. Maybe you could say how things are going. Trinidad and Tobago is part of this as well. We delivered a report to the government last year. I'm hoping that things are moving well, and you'll see a status of what's happening there shortly. Jamaica, that report was delivered this year, and I'm also hoping that things are going well, and we did a session with them, as I said, on Monday. Belize and Grenada were next on our list, and I know this was a direct result of our meeting last year. Thank you very much, Grenada, and especially Vincent for helping us get this done. We actually did a survey study in Grenada. That report is being drafted as we speak. I actually inputted the data in that report just 2 weeks ago, so that's finishing up. And Belize. So Belize and Grenada were just completed, and they should get their reports shortly. Q4, team is working on it. It's coming soon. We also have done work with the Caribbean Postal Union, and they actually had a problem with their website, and they were locked out of their site. So we've helped them transition to cpu.post and move their website and their email successfully across to cpu.post. Here's a status of what happened since last year. So since we've spoken to you, we've had applications from BVI. That's recently that actually 2 weeks ago that happened. The Bahamas, Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos, Belize, Anguilla, St. Lucia, Suriname, St. Vincent, and the OACS Commission. I'm pleased to say that since these applications have been completed, St. Lucia and Belize have their funding approved, and we're about to start projects with them today. So this is not about talk. For those who know me, I don't like to talk too much. I like to action things. So action is beginning, and I'm hoping the ones in green are going to move to action, and the ones in yellow, I hope when I come back next year, God willing, that those will all be green. And I hope to see all of the Caribbean in this list, not just those names, the entire Caribbean. I'm looking at people just to make sure we know that you're not on that list if you're not on that list. Please put your name on that list so that you would not be missing out on our funding. Here's this QR code once again for you so that you can, in case you missed it the first time, one more time. I know it's good in the Caribbean to show it one more time. Go back to the list. St. Kitts wants to see if their name is there. Yes. I know we spoke to St. Kitts last year. So let's hope that we can proceed. Secure.post, I mentioned that's a portal that's currently available. We're about to launch that, other aspects of that. So if you go to secure.post right now, you'll actually see an application running where you can test malicious websites of malicious activity. If you go to secure.post today, right now, you'll find that application running live on secure.post. Soon we'll be having our Ask, our Learn, and our Test portals running. And as I mentioned, our partners in this project, APWG, for those in the cybersecurity industry, these should be well known to you, including the ITU, Internet Society, and others. And the post-ISAC. So, as I wrap up here, just as a call for all who are interested in joining us in this journey to work together as the world to build our cyber resilience together, to strengthen our cyber resilience posture and to move forward. This is the place where this will happen. In the post-ISAC, I'm making a strenuous call for you to join, and to do that, here is a QR code for you to sign up and to join us as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Tracy. There's been a lot of activity between CTU and UPU since that MOU was signed. So that I would say is one of the most successful of the MOUs that we've been involved with. We're going to move on now.
No. One sec. We're not moving on yet. Just
you have a question?
Sorry. Yes, not even a question, it's a comment, and it's a good segue to the next intervention. I wanted to also endorse the fact that, we signed lots of MOUs. There are MOUs and there are MOUs, but this one definitely has seen a lot of collaboration. Since the presentation in St. Kitts and Nevis, you've seen how many countries have taken up the offer. This is, resources are being made available. And a lot of this collaboration is happening because Tracy's at UPU and Tracy's from Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you.
Right? Because we never saw this kind of a collaboration before. And it's a good segue to the next presentation, because we talk about having Caribbean people in international organizations. UPU is as international as they get. And this is the kind of attention that we are getting, the collaboration is unprecedented. And it's simply the fact that Tracy is there, and we have this network and connection, and we make things happen. So I just wanted to say that. We're pressed for time, so I want, if you want to say anything, you can, but I'm just very pleased with the level of collaboration, and it was not just a photo op of signing of an MOU with the Executive Director is the title, right?
Director General.
Director General, who was just, in fact, re-elected. He's from Japan. He's just re-elected. So I look forward to our continued collaboration.
Thank you very much, and I'm in the room, so if you want to chat with me after, and after, of course, at the cocktails. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So again, shifting gears on the agenda, I would invite Mr. Stephen Barreau, and that's why I raised the point of having nationals within these international organizations that can really, pay attention and build on the networks here in the Caribbean. And I want to invite Stephen Barreau to tell us about the, Bahamas has put him forward as a candidate for the Deputy Secretary General at the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference next year. And he's here to just tell us a bit about himself and about that process and how we can support that. Over to you, Stephen. Thanks.
Thank you, Secretary General, and good afternoon, ministers. It's actually interesting that Tracy and I, the two UN entities that Tracy and I work at, are actually the two oldest United Nations entities. I think the ITU is about 10 years older, 9 years older than the UPU. But both of these are actually older than the UN itself. Can you hear me? I'll try this a second. Is this better? No? Is it me? Is it my voice? Yeah, there's that. Yeah, so I was just saying that both of us have chosen to work at the two oldest UN agencies. with the ITU and UPU both being much older than the UN itself, at 150 and 160 years respectively. So it's a privilege for me to address this session of CTU ministers in the Executive Council. I'm honored to be supported by the government of the Bahamas as a candidate for Deputy Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union. I want to thank S.G. Taylor for inviting me to speak in support of a resolution in support of my candidature. It's my hope that you collectively will afford me the even greater honor of heading into the elections next year, not only as the Bahamas' candidate, but as a Caribbean candidate for Deputy Secretary General. In 2022, I was honored to have the region come together to support me as a candidate for Director of the BDT. While we were not successful on that occasion, the level of support was phenomenal. And what we were able to achieve really showed what is possible with Caribbean unity. I hope with a refreshed approach, we'll meet with success this time around. My campaign for ITU-DSG is built on three simple, but I think very powerful pillars: excellence, transformation, and collaboration. As ITU-DSG, I would ensure that ITU operates with excellence, with the highest standards of governance, transparency, and accountability, so that every dollar and every initiative delivers real impact for our member states. I will seek to transform the ITU into the modern entity that it needs to be by introducing things like results-based management, data-driven planning, agile systems, and a stronger regional presence. And I want to highlight that for us here today. The ITU must be ready for the fast-changing digital landscape that we are facing today. I also believe collaboration has to be strengthened. We have to build deeper partnerships across the ITU. Those of you who are involved in the ITU know we're a multi-bureau entity, and that creates inefficiencies which we have to deal with as an organization. We have to also be partners with our member states, with industry, with academia, youth, and civil society. And we need a more inclusive, consultative organization that will better serve all of us, especially developing nations and small island developing states like ours. Many of you already know my background, so I won't spend too much time on that. I've spent the past few years leading change at the ITU. As the Chief of Administration and Finance, and as the Interim Chief of Transformation, I guided reforms to make the Union more effective and accountable. Prior to that, as Deputy to the Director of the ITU Development Bureau, I oversaw strategic planning and strengthened ITU's regional operations. And before that, here in the region, I served as the Chief Executive Officer of the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority in the Bahamas, and held senior roles before that at TAT in Trinidad and Tobago. These experiences give me something rare in the international ICT community: a deep, lived understanding of small island developing states, and in particular our region, our connectivity challenges, our vulnerability to climate and economic shocks, the high cost of infrastructure for us, our need for resilient networks, digital public infrastructure, skills development, and youth empowerment. I know what it means to operate in small markets, to balance affordability with innovation, and to stretch limited resources to deliver impact. This perspective matters. The ITU is entering a period where global digital policy decisions, from WSIS Plus 20 to the GDC, will shape opportunities for decades. But this is also a period where the multilateral system is facing funding challenges that will limit what is available for everyone. A Caribbean and a SIDS voice must be present at the highest table when these decisions are being made, when the decisions are being made to address these issues. A Deputy Secretary General who knows our realities means that our priorities, from disaster resilient networks to maritime and last mile connectivity, will influence global decisions. The ITU's modernization will keep SIDS at its core, ensuring resources flow where they're most needed. And our youth, innovators, and entrepreneurs will see opportunities shaped with their context in mind. Ministers, colleagues, and friends, we have a big challenge ahead of us. The other candidates that are already declared for DSG are from larger and or better resourced countries and regions, and we can expect more competition for such a critical role, especially when the current Secretary General will demit office in 4 years, making this, in some people's eyes, a stepping stone. To succeed, we have to combine our numbers, our unity, and diplomacy. I ask for your support for the resolution related to the upcoming elections at the PP26, and for your collaboration and support in the coming months as the campaign continues globally. You can support this campaign by advocating actively, engaging your ministries of foreign affairs, and I can't say that too often, to coordinate regionally how we will vote both in 2026 and between now and then, so that our message is united and unmistakable. The Caribbean is ready to lead. Success for a small island developing state in a field dominated by bigger players will only come if we stand together and leverage every diplomatic tool we have. I'm deeply grateful for your trust and partnership, and with your active support, political, diplomatic, and technical, we can bring excellence, transformation, and collaboration to the heart of the ITU and ensure the next era of global digital development includes a strong, decisive Caribbean and SIDS voice. Thank you.
Floor is open for any questions or comments. So, and just remind member states that there is a resolution being tabled in the General Conference tomorrow for your consideration in terms of your support, not just by way of voting, but by way of advocacy as well, and so on. Minister Nicholas Antigua.
Yes, sir. Through you, Mr. Chair, a question for Stephen. What if during the campaign, and I wasn't in Bucharest, the last time you were seeking office, but what if during the campaign they laid the charge at your feet that you're only seeking a mandate to satisfy the requirements of this region? How do you broaden your international appeal? How do you intend to broaden your international appeal? We know that our interests are at the center of your being, but how do you broaden your international appeal to capture the wider audiences that you must get support from as well?
Thank you. And through you, Chair, thank you, Minister. I think that's a very good question. My being from a SIDS is at the core of who I am. That gives me several advantages, and I've realized that in the international arena. Maybe others who are there will notice. Because we are accustomed to being in a small environment where we have few people, we have to do a lot of things. We have to learn how to operate in spaces where others are able to specialize. You go to a large country, you have a finance person, you have a HR person, and they seldom are able to go across those two. Anyone in the Caribbean who's worked in our organizations, our ministries, our regulators, otherwise, will understand that you can't do that where we come from. That gives an ability, I believe, to be much more efficient and to be more, as I said in my remarks, effective with the use of resources. That's at the core of what we do every day. And that is my platform. My platform, while I come from a small island developing state, so I understand the needs of our region, and I understand the needs of other small countries around the world, my platform is that if we can be more efficient as an organization, how we run internally, and I am focused internally, unlike the other four elected officials who tend to be more outward facing. They come around the world. If we can be more efficient internally and spend less on what we have to do, that means that more resources go to what we are supposed to do. And that is the platform. So the SIDS angle of it is why I hope that you would support me, because I bring that element. But I believe that the message I'm sending is relevant to all countries that need anything from the ITU, from standardization right through to development. Thank you.
St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you, Chair. I had the pleasure of being in Bucharest, 3 years ago. And I have, I guess, as an elected member of parliament, maybe a political question. If I'm not mistaken, the present SG is from our region, If I'm not mistaken, she will probably pursue that position again. In an extension to the question that Honorable Melford asked, how are we going to convince the world that we should have the SG and the DG, Deputy SG, sorry, from the same region? What is the strategy to overcome that argument that I know that the African states will make, the Asian states are going to make, etc.?
And I think that is, again, a very good question, Chair, if I may. I think that, well, the first thing is obviously it is something we will have to answer. But we are different from North America and South America. We are small island developing states, and we have, in my view, our own constituency of similar countries across the world, not just in our region, in the Pacific and in other parts of the world as well, who need, and who I believe I can be a voice for. So that's the first part of it. The second part is one of the great challenges of the geopolitical environment in the world today is the relationship among large countries across the world. And I, without going into any detail, that is, of course, a major challenge. And the Secretary General, of course, being from the United States, our region, notwithstanding our close physical proximity to the United States, also has very good relations across the world with large countries everywhere. I hope in my campaign to convince those who might see things that way that it is important to have someone who can be trusted by all. And that will be that's in large part the work that we in the region have always done. We've always been able to host things, to chair things, to arbitrate things, because while we are, everybody, nobody doesn't want to hang out in the Caribbean or with Caribbean people. So I believe I know that I have the trust of the Secretary General, and I also am able to speak to her when things might not be the way she wants to do them. And I think as DSG, that's actually a value that I can bring, and that I've already had some conversations with people from other parts of the world who will say that. Now, we will have some challenges, but I also think that, you know, you mentioned Africa, for example. The last time around, obviously, Africa was a challenge because we were running against them, and that was an experience. But at the end of the day, looking around this room, most African people would fit quite well in here. And I think against the possibility of someone else, if there is not an African candidate, and so far there does not seem to be one, because they are very determined to retain the BDT. So the Caribbean then, we have 14, hopefully, countries in this room that can offer support toward that end, and that we can then hopefully get some support in return.
Thank you. The floor remains open. And I just remind also, as you may recall, Minister Maynard, that our campaign was a very short one, but still on the strength of his performance in the ITU as Deputy Director BDT, he was it was a very competitive race. And so eventually the African states consolidated in order to secure the position, but the reality is that Stephen was doing quite well in a very short space of time on the strength of his relationships and the strength of his track record alone. So I think with a longer run-up, an opportunity to engage through diplomatic channels, then the opportunity is, I think, better. Guyana?
Yes, SG, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that comment, and I believe that we have a good chance this time around, a better chance rather, and I believe that if all of us put our minds together and help in the campaign strategy and to do it right exactly from now, or very soon from now, we can position our candidate and have a very good advantage at doing so, but it means we have to all be together in such a way where the advocacy is very strong and we leave no stone unturned. We go among every group, every individual who we believe we can exert influence on to be able to get our candidate in, because as we all know, the importance of us having one of us there at this level can make such a big difference, huge difference for the Caribbean. And I believe that it's doable. We have to all be unified on this and to be able to carry an aggressive campaign and to support his platform going forward. And I believe the earlier we do this, it gives us a better chance at it. And so in our case, we are absolutely certain about supporting a candidate from the Caribbean, and in this case, Stephen, to be for the candidacy of the Deputy Secretary General of the ITU.
Thank you very much. Sinkits?
Just one small point of reminder. I don't know if you remember, but Honorable Nicholas and other elected representatives would know this fact that all politics is local. And at the ITU 3 years ago, we were tasked to engage, and I met this one particular country who I went to ask for their support for Stephen. And she said, how can I vote for Stephen? And he passed me straight in the corridor outside. Now, this is a country, a very important country, who is still willing to make a decision on the fact that he just happened not to catch eyes with her on the panel, and he knew who the person was, so immediately he went to have that conversation. But it's just to remind us that we can't take any vote at all for granted. And I remember when I was in Bahamas for the CTU 3 years ago, your Prime Minister, then Brave, gave a story of, I think his driver or his right-hand man, who told him he was going to do the right thing and so on, etc. And when he came down to actually ask him, the driver was going to vote for somebody else. He said, you didn't ask, or rather the other guy asked me first. So I want to encourage in the campaign to remember that all politics is local. It is still human beings you're dealing with. It's a private vote, so while that country may have had an instruction from home, right there at the voting, they may say, well, Stephen passed me straight, and he didn't ask me. So we have to ask everybody, every single body that we need to vote from.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes, Belize.
Through you, Chair. I just want to say that I have done the consultation since I listened to you this morning. And some of the same concerns that the ministers expressed, those are concerns that I would have had, as I mentioned. And indeed, unless there's a mark on your finger that says that the person voted and you know they voted for you, only then will you know after they count the votes. That's how politics work. But I must say that I think Guyana used the word absolutely. That's what I got from Capital. And so Belize will absolutely support your candidacy and help with advocacy for your election as well.
Any last comments before we close? And I am encouraged so far by the positive response, which we anticipate, of course, but it's good to have that assurance. Okay, we are running a bit late on time, so I want to thank Stephen for his intervention. Stephen, thank you. Stephen is leaving tomorrow morning, so I'm sure we will have many opportunities to engage with him, but There's a reception this evening, so we will see you a little later. Yes. Thank you very much. So we just have two very short presentations left for today, and that the first one is from the Youth Network. We have Tariq Mohammed, who is the chair of the Youth Network. He's been doing some amazing work, as you see, with Smart Seas, and he's been brought on actually on a short-term contract to assist me with a submarine cable project. There's an international advisory body established by the ITU. I'm co-facilitator of a working group on geographic diversity and fostering connectivity. And because of the volume of work, Tariq has been helping me with that. And also the same brief on satellite connectivity was prepared by both Shernan and Tariq, and there's a resolution on that. But without further ado, I'll give the floor to Tariq. And then lastly, we will have a short presentation intervention as well from Francola John on the network of women. I see he's putting on his TNT flag. Youth Caribbean ICT Youth Network. Oh, network of women. There's a CTU network of women as well has been quite active. So just two updates on those. Go ahead, Tariq.
Testing? Oh. Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon again, everyone. Tariq Mohammed here again, taking off my ITU hat, putting on my CTU Caribbean ICT Youth Network hat. It's, of course, a pleasure to speak right after Stephen Bureau, who mentioned a lot on youth and youth support. And he has been a very active supporter of the next generation since this network was inceptioned in 2022. And we've seen now that Bahamas has been very active in supporting their youth. And some of them who we wanted here today are in, where are they? In Brazil, representing the Bahamas at PCC2. So let's see if the clicker works. Wonderful. The Caribbean ICT Youth Network is a strategic initiative of the CTU which sets out to develop the next generation of ICT leaders. Leaders in what sense? Regulators, engineers, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and the list really goes on and on and on. Our focus is across a few different areas which include capacity building, promoting youth representation and inclusive engagements, expanding the network to other countries, and of course supporting the entire digital innovation ecosystem. Our membership is available to Caribbean representatives from any of CTU's 20 member states between the ages of 16 to 35. And it does provide a good opportunity to increase your capacity, develop your networks, as well as contribute to Caribbean developments. So this network is inceptioned not in the Caribbean, but actually all the way in Rwanda, right before the last WTDC, and that's where, if you see in the bottom left corner, you see a picture of us meeting with the CTU's SG and DSG. Over the past few years, 2022 to 2024, we've done quite a bit of work in the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, which is now an official registered NRI under the UN IGF. We've also had annual meetings of the Caribbean ICT Youth Network since 2023 as part of ICT Week and represented at a number of ITU conferences. Plenipotentiary in 2022, we have Gabrielle there from Trinidad and Tobago. We have myself at Dubai with Nigel at the World Radio Communication Conference. And later this year, we have an exciting opportunity for the World Telecommunications Development Conference in Azerbaijan. 2025 has been a quite active year. We've had a number of capacity building initiatives, the first one being a technical capacity building on Python-powered data analytics. That was a hybrid event that took place in person at the University of the West Indies in Trinidad and Tobago, but thanks to the CIYN, this youth network, we've had over 260 participants, not just from around the region, but worldwide, getting persons from Singapore and India and beyond. We've also sent one youth to Taiwan to do a 3-week AI training on image and document processing. Last month, yes, we are in September. Last month, we had the 21st Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, for which the youth were actively represented both at that, as well as the 4th Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum. And we've also started having CTU internships at the Secretariat. What we recently launched as well is a quarterly newsletter called The Caribbean Bite. BITE standing for Building Youth Tech Engagement, and myself and Gabrielle Johnson, the vice chair of the network, have been the ones putting this together. It's a quarterly publication set to release its next issue in October 2025. It's really centered around different youth perspectives in the tech space, other initiatives and events that are upcoming, as well as those that passed in the last quarter, and really having that youth voice heard. So, on to this year, we have a fantastic opportunity thanks to ARIN, which is a fellowship to the ITU's World Telecommunications Development Conference in Baku, Azerbaijan. This is open until the Friday at the end of this week, and it is for CTU, well, active members of the Caribbean ICT Youth Network between the ages of 18 to 35 years old. The stipulation is, of course, is that they needed to attend at least one of our events and be an active member. We want to encourage active youth to join this Caribbean delegation to support the CTU's participation and support for its membership, member states at the upcoming WTDC. Looking forward, we do have a number of other initiatives which include continuations of our annual Youth Internet Governance Fora, Caribbean ICT Youth Network meetings, the expansion, hopefully, of the CTU's internship program, and we're also looking at hosting a Caribbean Youth Tech Summit, perhaps, as part of the next ICT week, as well as fellowships to WTDC 2026, in support of the CTU's delegation, really to coordinate those 3 weeks of activities there. So with that, of course, we like to encourage our member states to be actively involved and regulators to include representation where possible of youth in CTU and Caribbean ICT Youth Network events and other initiatives. Of course, we have had some challenges in getting that participation in all of the member states. So we're hoping that through the resolution that was shared this morning and hopefully to be discussed tomorrow, that we can also identify some focal points at each of the member states to just pass communications through to make that easier. We also encourage member states and regulators to consider including the voice of youth in shaping national policies. And of course, to any private sector members that are present with us, we do, of course, appreciate any sponsorship and in-kind support that you are able to provide to the network, and also encourage you to collaborate with us, whether it be on internships or other capacity building opportunities. So with that, I just want to thank you really quickly. I know we are pressed on time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at ciyn@ctu.int, and you can look out for the next publication of the Caribbean Bite in the middle of October. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I want to add that it's actually the plenipot. I think you said WTDC, but it is the same plenipotentiary conference that we're talking about in 2026. And WTPF as well in Bahamas. We're talking about a youth engagement there as part of the celebration, the conference in Bahamas. But in 2022, when we took young people along with us to the delegation to the plenipotentiary conference in Bucharest, Romania, they weren't there to sightsee. They worked every day. They helped us draft policy statements that were then delivered on the main stage by the ministers. So we supported the delegation. They helped it. Daily we met. We broke down. Well, actually, Gabrielle Johnson right here was part of that delegation, right? Absolutely. And we were well organized. We broke down the resolutions, what the implications were, the policy statements, the coordination of the meetings, the voting, the lobbying, all of that. So, you know, they're getting a long run-up, as it were. I think Tariq also went to the World Radio Conference in 2023, and he's done more than some of us who've been around for a while, right? So he's getting a lot of exposure very early. But we want the exposure to be spread across the region, and in particular around the internships. We have taken on interns now at the CTU Secretariat for the last couple of years, but we want to broaden that so that it's not limited to youth in Trinidad and Tobago. But if we can get some of the regulators and our governments to work along with us, we can coordinate it, of course, a 2 or 3 months internship during the summer, that to give them exposure. We can assist in crafting a work program and a reporting framework, and it would be a part of a broader regional internship program to help develop the next generation of youth. I had a question from Minister McCoy regarding the representation. Like, I know we had sent out asking governments to nominate their focal point, right? What he's indicated is that sometimes they send different people. So how do the focal points work as opposed to just persons who sign up from, say, Guyana for the youth network? So the government nominated youth reps versus anyone who's interested in joining.
So for the youth that are interested in joining, we do have a membership form, and based off of that, we use that as the way to contact the youth, whether it be through email. We share all of our opportunities through there, as well as we have WhatsApp groups that are quite active in sharing opportunities, not just our own, but of course, if anyone else has an opportunity, they're always welcome to share. So in that sense, any youth that is interested is free to join these channels and become active members and engage with not just us who are working in it, but all the other youth that are present. The hope for the focal point is really somebody that is embedded within the various member states, whether it be the ministries or the regulators, that we can reach out to and say, these are the opportunities that we have. Please disseminate this within your networks, within your ministry, within your regulators. So yes, there are different persons that may attend the events, but the focal point, while there may or may not be a youth that attends the events, this may be somebody that can disseminate within different countries to spread that word and increase engagement. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If there are no questions, I want to thank Tariq. I'm conscious of the time, and we have just one short intervention on the network of women from Francola. John, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, SG, and I know I stand between you and cocktails, so this is definitely going to be 2 minutes. For the persons in the room who are attending the meeting for the first time, in 2023 and 2024, our General Conference of Ministers approved a proposal to advance gender mainstreaming to integrate parity, equity, and equality in their national ICT agendas. And in so doing, the General Conference of Ministers approved item number 1, which is for each member state to appoint a national focal point and points of contact. So just to give a quick update to date, we have 11 countries that have appointed national focal points, and we do have a number of countries that's outstanding, and we are going to follow up with them. We would require national focal points from Anguilla, Antigua, and Barbuda. We have from Barbados, Belize, British Virgin Islands. We'll require from Cayman Islands. We will require from Cuba. We have Dominica represented, nominees from Grenada. We are looking for a representative from Guyana. We have Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and outstanding we have Suriname and Montserrat. So we will be following up with these member states to have their national focal points appointed. The network was officially launched in November of 2024. We have recently as well revised our terms of reference in terms of the governance structure of the network, and we are going to issue an expression of interest in the coming weeks to appoint a chair and a vice chair of the network of women. We would welcome nominees to do so, but it will only be national focal points who would be considered to be a chair or a vice chair. One of the activities that we have been engaging is our advocacy and also networking with other networks of women, and we have recently joined as an affiliate member of the EU-LAC Network of Women, and as such, that governance structure as well would soon be looking to engage in having a rotating chairmanship, which would include affiliate members such as the Caribbean, and therefore a national focal point who is appointed as a chair could be that representative at the EU-LAC network of women, and along with EU and Latin America. So we are very active in all of our activities. We will be developing an action plan for 2026. And as you would see on the screen, we have our first Network of Women Leadership Seminar, which would be a staple on ICT Weeks going forward, but this is the inaugural seminar. And we have a lineup of reputable high-profile women who will be speaking. We have Roxanne Weber, who is the chair of TDAG, who would be joining us tomorrow to do a presentation. We'll also be Dr. Kim Malaleo. We have Sandria Maynard, as well as Ms. Hewling from Jamaica, who is a cybersecurity expert, and we're covering different thematic areas. So we invite you to be part of our leadership seminar here tomorrow in the Legacy Suite, which is on the other side of the building. So we look forward to having most of you in the room there. So SG, that is my quick update on the Network of Women. One more thing, we have a quarterly publication called In the Know, and to date we have done 9 issues. We have profiled women such as Doreen Bogdan-Martin, our Honorable Marie-Lucienne Ratier, and other high-profile women in our publication, which brings awareness to a number of the areas that we cover in the region. So we also invite you to subscribe to our publication. And that is my presentation, SG, at the end of the day.
Thank you very much. For those of you who have not yet, the countries that don't have a representative, I encourage you to participate. There will be opportunities for capacity building and also for participation in our delegations when we go to these international conferences. Any questions? If not, I would invite Francola to just you wanted to make an announcement regarding the reception this evening?
Yes, we do have a cocktail reception at the poolside this afternoon, sponsored by Amazon. All are invited, so we look forward to seeing you there at 6:30. So between 6:30 and 7, please join us at the pool. Again, we have the Network of Women Leadership Seminar tomorrow, as well as a cocktail reception hosted by the Honorable Minister Vaz, and that reception will be at the East Lawn of the Devon House. Transport will be provided to that event, so we do ask that you will make periodic announcements, and it will be highlighted on the screens of these events. So we look forward to seeing you at the pool later.
Thank you. Some folks, that brings us to the end of the joint meeting of the Executive Council and General Conference of Ministers for today. Thank you for your engagement and for staying the course. Tomorrow is we culminate the engagement of the ministers through the General Conference, where we examine or look more closely at the resolutions concerning the Deputy Secretary General, satellite communications, and the other things we spoke about this morning with your Executive Council. And that's the entire day. But after that, I think there's just a breakfast on Thursday morning, and then I think some of the ministers will start to leave. There are some other activities that will be taking place, including the Regulators Forum on Thursday and a PWD workshop. And on Friday, I believe there's an engagement with schools, but that's mostly for the local Jamaican contingent. So thank you and have a wonderful evening. I will see you on the poolside for the cocktail sponsored by Amazon. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.